Hello everybody and welcome back to coverage of the 2025 College League of Legends National Championships here on UniEsportsNA. For broadcast production provided by St. Clair College. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Alk Battery as we've already had a wild ride through our second weekend of games, and we have a matchup here in the round 4 of the lower bracket between St. Clair College and Winthrop University. Alk, this is going to be a crazy matchup. There are two teams down here that have a ton of experience against each other. They just played against each other at the Naceland a couple of days ago, and one of them is going to get knocked out here in the top 12 stage of CLOL.
I can't believe it. Just the fact that we already have the matchup between the 5th and the 6th seed of the tournament already here in the lower bracket, going to be going out in top 12 is a huge piece of this entire tournament. And CLOL this year has just already been crazy when you look at what's been happening in some of the other conferences. Again, UHSP kind of making a run there, and we got some of those games last night. Even Fisher taking it in a reverse sweep versus St. Clair last night, going the distance. 2025 has been a really good treat for us.
Well, let's just walk through what has happened so far by pulling up our bracket that has been updated, of course, going into day 4 of the Collegiate Championships on our final day of week number 2. This is the upper bracket portion as we have the upper semifinals. These games will be having their games take place on Saturday. Maryville against Fisher. Again, as we said, Fisher reverse sweeping St. Clair on our show last night to just get to this stage against MU. And then Ole Miss going up against what is one of the crazier underdog series stories of the entire tournament so far in the University of Western Ontario, who just took down St. Thomas in a 3-2 yesterday.
This upper bracket has been so much fun to watch. I know that when we were looking at the Ole Miss one, we had that amazing comeback in game number 3 for ISU where Fatikon was able to kind of hold his own against Ole Miss. This Western team has by far the craziest story. I think if they do make it into upper finals, that matchup versus a Maryville that has a bit of a substitution in some of their roles might just end up being, a preview of our grand finals if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, still a tough task to try to take down Ole Miss to get to that stage. But hey, it would be a rematch of the grand finals from, what was it, 2019, with Maryville taking on Western. So that would be
Yeah.
a pretty fun story if that ended up being the case here for this squad, who I know is graduating a lot of their players going into next season. But let's take a look at the lower bracket, which is where we'll be residing today, all because this has even maybe been crazier. We've gotten a lot of really fun stories. Teams like Minnesota making it all the way to lower round 3 after taking down Converse in a 3-1 fashion. Then you have UHSP, as you said, who took down UCI, as the North Conference has done pretty well for themselves down here.
This entire lower bracket has just been kind of overran when we talk about what happened in the first round. Winthrop losing to Western, going down into the lower bracket, and it feels almost like they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I feel like we say that a lot for Winthrop, especially when they come into these big tournaments, about are they actually going to be able to win? Are they going to kind of prove that they're that roster that all those years ago, kind of as a team or as a college, a program, to be able to win CLOL versus Maryville? They haven't had to really reach those highs in recent years, but the fact that they're already here in this lower bracket, the amount of games that they've been playing in the past week or so has been really intense. So I'm looking to see if Winthrop can kind of keep it together. This is their last best of 5 that they're going to have to play for at least for the next couple days.
I know, because it's been a bit of a busy experience for them as of late. Even going back to like last week, where they played 2 series in the NACL, and then went into their CLOL matches there, where they had to play 2 best of 5s, and then they had to play 2 best of 5s this week, all on top of going through the Naceland as well down in Orlando, Florida. So going up against St. Clair, that's a matchup that they played in that LAN. Also, just to note, there are other series happening across community streams. Camcom is going to be streaming University of St. Thomas against Purdue Northwest. Shawanotonin will be doing that Northern Finals, lower finals rematch between Illinois State and UHSP. So make sure you check out those community streams, as well as staying tuned right here, as the winners of these games will guarantee themselves top 8. But there is still more work for them to be done if they want to try to be part of the prize pool. We could take a look at what the scholarship opportunities are here for our students if they do end up taking home some of those top tier placements, and hey, it's good to see some support being thrown their way.
Yeah, of course. Being able to just grab yourself a bit of a scholarship is always I think the fun part. A lot of the prestige that does come with playing in the collegiate championship is having that possibility of showing up in person in North Carolina, as well as just being able to prove yourself as a program. I know that we've seen a lot of specifically interconference play, and with the addition of some more lands, it's been great to see, but the collegiate championship always holds a very special place in a lot of the hearts of our collegiate program. So being able to grab some of that USD is nice, but especially now they're gonna have to work still for a little bit here, as we're still getting into top 8.
Yeah, still for the teams in the lower bracket, it's not only winning this series, but then winning 2 more series after that, each on back-to-back days next Saturday and Sunday, as we get into our later stages of competition. The lower bracket, certainly a gauntlet, especially for a team like Winthrop, who dropped down here a little bit earlier than expected. Going to be a lot of series that they have to win in a row in order to claim that spot on their road to Raleigh, North Carolina. As we could get into our matchup here for the day. Winthrop University going up against St. Clair. Again, these 2 teams had aspirations that are much bigger than being down here eliminated in that top 12 spot. Let's take a look at the Golden Eagles to start things off here, though. This is a roster that's been together at its core for a couple of years at this point. They brought in only 35 as their newest addition entering the 2025 season, and while they got off to a hot start, they seem to be scuffling a little bit going into this national title run.
There's been some issues. I think that even if you look at the problems that this team has had, even them losing those couple of games, we still see a lot of the same problems that we have seen from Winthrop for multiple years, thanks to just having this same core. You would think that in a meta where you could have facilitating mids like the Galio, you can play Orianna, there's even a Zir and Ryze now in the meta, that this would really fit Sword. You have top laners that are really crushing for priority and still have individual agency like the Gwen and Ambessa, perfect for a player like Denethor. Unfortunately, this Winthrop roster has not really been able to, I think, piece it together consistently across their games, and you can, I think, see that reflected not only in their performance in this tournament, but even going back to NECC, them falling a bit earlier in the lower finals to Ole Miss, ending up there as the 3rd seed. I think a lot of teams and a lot of people watching were not expecting them to be coming in as the 3rd seed from that conference.
Definitely not. Hey, this is a team that has always kind of finished towards the top. I think even last year when they ended, I believe, top 6 in CLOL, that was probably a
Yes.
disappointment for them. Being top 12 in CLOL would definitely be a even bigger disappointment, especially when they consider, this team getting another year of run together. And it just comes down to their misuse of the early game opportunities that have been given to them, especially recently. They've been put in situations where they have big leads, and the problem for them has been having to close them out. As that was notably a problem that they faced against Western Ontario in their first round of the CLOL Championships, which already has been one of the bigger upsets that we've had so far.
Yeah, and Winthrop, to be fair to them, should still be considered favorites. I think the level of play that Winthrop has shown us the last couple years of this team has proven that this roster should be believed and, kind of believed forward to be favorites in a lot of the series that they play. You think about also the level of play that they kind of go up against across the board, not only having to play here in collegiate, but also playing in NACL. You have to imagine that this team has enough experience and enough firepower at this point that they should continue on past this matchup going up against St. Clair.
Well, let's take a look at their opponents in St. Clair. As you mentioned, the number 1 seed out of the Eastern Conference, and they just fell down to this lower bracket. They, of course, took down Purdue Northwest in the first round of play, then got reverse swept, unfortunately, to Fisher College just last night. And now they find themselves here against Winthrop. Now, this was also a series that Winthrop and St. Clair played against each other last CLOL in the top 8, the upper quarterfinals portion. And that resulted in St. Clair getting reverse swept as well. So they've had their share of having this happen to them, going up 2-0 and then ending up losing the series.
It's really tragic. That last series, they started off so strong. The Lucian Melio coming in from Ligue Miracle felt like it was going to at least carry them for multiple games. Then they ran into Nefiri as a problem. We'll see how they tackle this issue going into today's best of 5. And when we look at St. Clair, I think that even with some of the pieces of this roster eventually moving on and graduating out, I think that now we have a bit of a different look at St. Clair, and hopefully one that has leveled up. Obviously being able to take down Western finally, as the East has almost universally been dominated by that team and by that program. Just, I think, has kind of given this team an extra life, especially. And I mean, with Flocon and Lig, I felt like with especially the exciting prospect in mid, this St. Clair roster should be able to, I think, punch above what people may have expected coming into this season.
Yeah, I mean, they've played in a lot of different stuff this year, just like Winthrop has, right? Not just CLOL, but they've also played in the NA Super Conference. They've also played in the NACL OQs. So this is a roster that has had a lot of experience playing together against, especially top teams, both in the amateur Tier 3 space, as well as some of the top teams in CLOL. They were able to get opportunities against a team like ISU, who they did take down in the regular season, and they faced off against Winthrop, getting reps against Maryville even. So that should hopefully be helpful for them. Obviously, there is a 6-man situation that is going on with their roster. It has been announced that Sama will be starting game number 1 here. He, I think, started off pretty well. He also had a really good Western or Eastern Conference Finals against Western, but then maybe showed a little bit of inconsistencies later on in the series that we're hoping to see him bounce back from here today.
Especially if you look at his posts. I mean, I will be fair. Yesterday was not some of his best games, and I'm glad that Sama was able to reflect, feeling like a lot of that was his fault. To be fair, it's a team game. Everybody is able to kind of contribute to the losses. So I'm looking forward to how Sama is going to be able to bounce back. And let's just be clear. This is a hard matchup to go against, especially less than 24 hours later, having to immediately bounce back, and you're playing against Denethor. You're playing against a Winthrop that has been battle-tested, that is now playing 25 total games in the last 8 days. I think that this is a really tough ask, but if there's ever a time to kind of prove up an upset, I think if there's ever a time, Winthrop have shown that they are not bulletproof in this tournament, and it would be an incredible story, especially for St. Clair.
Yeah, hey, Sama does bring a little bit of differences in terms of the champion pools to Ricky. Obviously, they both can play the tanks. They both have that pocket pick Olaf, but I think the mage play for Sama is something that can definitely stand out, especially against a player like Denethor, who has specific pocket picks of his own. If there are unique counters that maybe St. Clair are hoping to abuse, especially in this non-fearless format, I think bringing out Sama to be that kind of stable playmaker who can also, whip out some unique stuff should be pretty fun to watch. But for St. Clair, this team really revolves around their mid and bot lane. When Flocon and Lig are doing well, this team is doing well. I think specifically Lig coming in, replacing Rockboom, who is such a stable, hard carry for this team and one of their best players last year, frankly. Lig has stepped in and kind of filled that role completely well and maybe even more.
I think in-game wise, I think you're able to see that there is some kind of relation, obviously, with Lig having to be such a big carry for this team, especially early on when you talk about their laning phase. But even talking to Miracle before the games yesterday, he was like, it's been difficult because I've had to basically, as one of the members coming in from 2024, the leadership has had to change. Now they have two less vocal players. They lost Bakery Boy and Rockboom, and now having to kind of bridge that role as the leader for the team. They're obviously experiencing some growth pains there, but again, coming first out of their conference and hopefully with Miracle still developing as a really cool prospect that we've been seeing in Tier 3, there's a lot of hope for this St. Clair roster. Just, it's tough. This is, I want to always reiterate, this is a tough matchup going into Winthrop.
Anything can be possible, though, as we have seen here in the CLOL Championships. Games that you expect to be completely one-sided turn up on its head, and I don't think that we could necessarily say this is a one-sided matchup. I think, obviously, very fair to say that Winthrop are the favorites, even though they fell earlier in the upper bracket and have been going on this run, just the skill and the strength of their roster and the pedigree that they have. But, St. Clair has had some really strong performances in their own right, so definitely don't want to count them out, especially here in the college championships, in that lower bracket where they don't want to finish 9th to 12th. That's definitely not a placing that they were hoping for either. So we're getting ready for the draft for game number 1. Winthrop will be on the blue side to start us off for this series. Unfortunately, there was a couple of tech delays here on one of the team's side, just trying to make sure that they are all on full strength and ready to go here for this best of 5. And again, reminder that there are other series going around as well throughout today. We have UST versus Purdue Northwest. That is a rematch of top 16 from last year's CLOL. And then we also have, again, that lower finals rematch from the North Conference between ISU and UHSP, who, ISU, they've basically taken care of business against UHSP every single time they've played. It's been 2 3-0s in a row in the East Conference playoffs, but I don't know. Something about the tactics got me a little bit excited about what they could potentially do today.
They keep finding wins. I mean, look, since we're in a tech delay anyway, if we can pull up the lower bracket just so we can kind of better visualize for the audience at home. Look, this UTechtics roster has been so much fun. Already starting in the lower bracket, they take down UT, then they go up against UCI, which I think a lot of people were looking to UCI to make a bit of a deeper run than they did. Going out immediately in the lower round of the bracket was, I think, not in a lot of people's bracketology. And so I think they've had a very fun run. Their biggest test is now going to be this round and then the next. It doesn't get any easier from here because they have to face off against ISU, who you just said 0-6 in the year, and then afterwards playing against the winner of the PNW or St. Thomas. That's impossible, man.
It's going to be a bit of a run here for UHSP if they're going to want to do something. But hey, they've already shocked the world this far. They've won 3 best of 5s in a row. Can they do it a 4th time against a team that has dominated them so hard all throughout this season? That would definitely be a really fun story to watch. And then, looking around as well, seeing a team like Weber State upset Grandview, and just the funny counterbalance of the fact that the West 1 seed ends up getting knocked out a little bit earlier, and then the West 2 seed is now here in top 12, especially for Weber, who got knocked out in the first round in an upset against Ottawa last season. Seeing them actually go on a bit of a run this year is definitely fun to see.
I mean, there's already 3 conferences. We have a bunch of conferences who are no longer part of the tournament, but especially for our much larger ones, MEC is down to a single seed. South is down to a single seed with UST. Obviously, we were just talking about Weber State. This CLOL bracket has been pretty fun, and there's some other things that we can kind of touch upon. I mean, the fact that this tournament right now and coming into 2025, the big conversation was going to be, is NECC going to be that big conference that ends up, providing us one of our winners of the tournament up against the North? And so far, the North has been surprising. Obviously, Maryville's been very dominant, but I think no one was really expecting the UTechtics to come on through and pull off a bunch of wins like this.
You want to hear a fun fact, Doc? The West number 1 seed has not won a game or a matchup in CLOL, has not won a series in CLOL in the national championship since 2022. It was UCI, the 1 seed, that got knocked out in the first round. It was Weber in 2024 that got knocked out in the first round. And then it was UCI again, who, to be fair, they played 2 series, but they were both losses because they started off in the upper bracket in this new format. So it's been a bit unlucky. If you were the number 1 seed from the West, you've been a bit cursed as of late.
Guys, I think we need to stop sending the best from the West. Let's send the second ones. We don't need to see the first seed. Second best of the West will carry this conference for sure, guys.
Yeah, and so with that being said, let's circle back to our series, which is going to be starting in just a little bit. And we do have an important announcement. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, it looks like Winthrop will not be able to run out their full starting 5 roster for game number 1 of this series. So their coach Artemis is going to be subbing into the bot lane to play for Mobility, who is their AD carry and, in my opinion, one of their best players on the team. So it's going to be a bit of a tough comeback here for them to be put in this hole early, but we'll see. Anything again can happen in CLOL, but that's definitely a tough blow down here in the lower bracket to start your season off.
Yeah, it's the funny part here is that technically Artemis did play a little bit. It's been a while. It's been a while since we saw him play, but he did get his start in Columbia College. He was over there. So
wow.
Maybe we're doing some callbacks here. Artemis making the comeback to try to help his team make a final surge in the lower bracket. But like you were just saying, Mobility, one of their best players by far, and especially losing them here in this game when we talked about the bot lanes being so important in this matchup, definitely going to hamper Winthrop in particular. But maybe they have the coach now to lead them through the game, so maybe those closing out problems we won't see.
You know what? That is true. However, it will be Artemis playing against Lig, and I feel like that is going to be a bit of a mismatch going in. When I saw Mobility versus Lig in this lower bracket matchup, I was like, this is going to be awesome. This will be really fun. 2 top contested AD carries going at it. Now we'll see if Artemis can pick up the slack. Now, also something that we've always seen when there are support people playing ADC out of position, will the Seraphine come in? Will there be some unique bot lane coming in? Only time will tell, I guess, as we are here in the draft for game number 1 against, again, Winthrop being the higher seed, going to be selecting blue side, seemingly, for game number 1.
Okay, so bans, I think, are going to stay pretty much similar when we talk about playing against St. Clair. Nunu's been very popular. Have to always imagine that you're also going to be getting rid of Flocon's Vladimir. I think really matches up into what Sword wants to do a lot of the time in mid lane, so makes sense. Also getting rid of Volibear, so some early action being taken away from St. Clair.
Yeah, a lot of targets towards Maddie, which is interesting because I feel like Maddie overall has been a really good facilitator for this team. However, it's been on a lot of tanks. You guys were talking about it on the show yesterday. Was on the Sejuani a lot. Maybe it was you guys were wondering if maybe it was a punishment or not, you and Simo on the show. But yeah, I think he actually does pretty well on those facilitating junglers. And it seems like Winthrop agreed. They're banning away the Nunu and the Volibear, 2 things that definitely can have a lot of high impact on the game early on. So that is Maddie's style. We'll see if he falls back to something else or, maybe tries to go for one of those champions like the Lilia, which he was known for back in the day.
Grapes, I am so afraid right now. I'm seeing Viban. Big problem in their series yesterday was no presence of Nefiri coming out from St. Clair and them even being the ones to ban the Vi. I think this is a perfectly fine first pick coming in for Winthrop if they want it. You can also try to prioritize Denethor the Rumble now with Gwen and Jace gone. I think that they might get some flashbacks to what Fisher did to them and what Bruness was able to get MVP on.
Yeah, because Wilson definitely can play that Nefiri, although it looks like it's going to be a Lucian first pick. I wonder if that's just getting Artemis some comfort down there in the bottom lane, because maybe he only knows how to play a couple champions really well as an AD carry. Or if maybe it's a flex pick. I don't know. With the sub getting thrown in here definitely throws a wrench into our expectations for this series.
I thought we learned our lesson from yesterday that Lucian Melio is something that you pair up with the Electrocute, you do a ton of damage. Now I think Winthrop are going to have to maybe pivot a little bit here and go for the Nami, which isn't as strong but still has ways to find early trades. Aphelios Melio in particular, though, if they can survive this laning phase, I think that Lig and Miracle on the side of St. Clair are going to be feeling very good here. So now Winthrop have an option. Do they continue to try to overforce on the dive and really try to get into the face of Lig, or do they go for more of those long range picks that would really help them deal with this bottom lane pair?
Well, it's going to be the Nami, as you mentioned. They got to make sure they lock that one in, make sure to, in case it gets banned away in that second phase. And now we'll see what direction, as you say, Winthrop want to try to allocate towards that composition. It looks like they're going to go for the Rise. This is something that both Sword and Flocon have played a lot, but I think more specifically Sword has been leaning towards this pick, something that can have threat in the side lane. It can also do a lot of team fight, have a lot of team fight utility, I should say, as we get later on at this one.
Okay. Yeah, gives them good side laning. I think already what we're seeing from Winthrop is their ability. No! All right, everything I just said doesn't matter anymore. Maddie has, yesterday, he played 5 games, 4 of them on Sejuani. I talked to him after the series. I said, Maddie, we have to protest. We cannot be picking more Sejuani games. And he says, I will try. And this is what we get. We start off the series already with a Sejuani. All right, Maddie, I need you to focus on your full clear. Make sure that you have good lanes you can play around. I want to see an improvement from Maddie in the jungle position.
And now I want to see what the solo laners are going to bring to the table as well in this second phase. You know, things like the Renekton, the Yone can very much be high impact in a world where you are locking in this Sejuani. We've seen that be high priority in leagues like the LPL and the LCK, the Sejuani Yone combo in that 2v2 mid jungle. So we'll see if Winthrop want to take that one away. That is definitely something that Flocon can play. The Renekton for Sama going to be the target as well. Still no Naafiri ban, which is very interesting to me. It seems like St. Clair feel like they have a solution or a way to play against this champion, even though it beat them a couple of times en route to that reverse split.
I also just think that because they don't have access to Naafiri, they just haven't shown that they can play it. I think they're very worried. If you're St. Clair or you're thinking, okay, they're willing to give it up, maybe saying that wasn't necessarily the issue to their games. I just really, really love the combo of Rise and Naafiri. It has been such a potent one when we've looked across the board, internationally speaking. So just giving free setup to your Naafiri makes it so much stronger, and we'll see if that is the case here for Winthrop. Again, with the Sejuani, now with the Galio being matched here, it's great for the individual lane matchup there, but it's all going to come down to whether or not we are going to be able to see whether if Winthrop actually prioritizes this champion, maybe make a pivot halfway through. This could be a Morgana draft again.
Oh god, that would be a little unorthodox, I would say. As
it's so
Flocon
good
Syndra,
here, though. Like,
you think so?
well, wait. I think when enemy team is showing Morgana and they're showing a Sejuani, you're going to be playing into Melio anyway, so let's just get out let's make him use ult and force him with our ultimate as Morgana. I think it's playable.
I don't know. The Fury's still up. Wilson, I don't know how much, Morgana he'll want to play. The Nocturne actually going to be the solution. So Naafiri going completely through this first game draft, which is a little bit surprising, I would say, for ourselves here on the desk. We're going to wait for what Denethor wants to blind pick here to wrap up this draft for game number 1. The Gnar would be a safe option. We'll see what Sama has in response to it. I will also mention at this point that Sama has in the past whipped out the Sejuani top lane. I don't imagine that this is going to be it. I think Maddie will be on it this time around. But if you wanted to pick something like Lilia here, it would be the good time for it.
He could. I think Jax is maybe his next best option. Gonna go for the Mbessa, so St. Clair are all in on this strategy where the solo lanes are going to have a lot of ability to dictate where this game is going. I also look at this from the side of Winthrop, who exactly is going to be tanking up the Sejuani ult. So depending on what Winthrop are able to do, they're going to be really indexed on trying to make sure that their solo lanes get them push early on. When we talk about the Rise and we talk about the Gnar, usually they're going to have a bit of an easier time being able to push, and these are laners that are also going to be very potent in a side lane. That being said here, Grapes, usually I would prefer for them to go for these grubs, but I think when you have so much priority coming in from a Lucian Nami, I kind of want to see them stack some Drakes. I want to see them cut that kind of potential win condition from St. Clair and make it difficult for them to scale.
Yeah, play around your strengths, which in this draft is definitely the Lucian Nami early, and then maybe your solo laners in a side lane later on in the game. Specifically, if Sword can get active with the Nocturne, that would be a really fun angle here for St. Clair to try to achieve. or for Winthrop to try to achieve. On the other side for St. Clair, again, the late game scaling is definitely there. If they can survive that early game from the Lucian Nami, and again, we'll see how Artemis really is situated on the AD carry position as a sub for this game number 1. That means that Lig and Miracle will be able to get online, and that is when things get dangerous here for St. Clair.
That's the worry, right? Just if Lig and them are able to have a strong laning phase. Last night versus Fisher, I think that this Melio pick actually provided so much value. Now here into what Winthrop have, it's not particularly that strong, especially that there are not too many cleansables, but does make it difficult for Winthrop to actually find good crowd control, and that just means that there's more eyes on this support coming in for St. Clair. Can he kind of find those spots where Emilio is going to have so much value and, help his team get over the finish line, as he is, I think, one of the more exciting prospects, especially when we talk about supports here in the Collegiate Championship.
Yeah, I mean, again, such a wild situation that we've been thrown into here. Again, lower bracket matchup between Winthrop and St. Clair, two teams that we consider to be top 8 programs in the league this season, going into 2025. And they are fighting for their lives. They are fighting for elimination. Obviously, that comes with the fact that they each dropped a series earlier on in the event to drop down into the lower bracket at this point at all. But the fact that this is happening, the stakes of being eliminated at 9th to 12th, certainly very high for both of these programs. And now Winthrop, who already have had their fair share of struggles going into the championship, whether it be through the NACL or in the NACC, now have to deal with yet another hurdle being thrown their way, with Artemis having to sub in here for game number 1 of this best of 5. Hopefully we'll be able to get the full roster and mobility back in action as soon as possible, but you really hope, if you're a Winthrop fan, that this does not start the cycle or a spiral of bad outcomes going forward to end your season at an unfortunate time.
Yeah, in the past 8 days, they have played 25 games in total from the side of Winthrop. They're 14-11, so at least over the 500 mark there. But you look at how many best of 3s they've played. So I'm looking 6-5. Yeah, they've played 6 best of 3s and 2 best of 5s in the last 8 days. That's insane, and especially just the range in which they played. Not only playing fellow collegiate teams in that NA Star League Grand Finals, but also talking about playing an NACL, so you're playing against 2 other teams that were kind of doing pretty well in Conviction and in CCG. I think there's a lot of questions as to whether or not this Winthrop roster is going to be able to pull it over the line. They should be expected favorites today, but already starting off with a sub. This is a team that also, I think, has been playing a little bit emotionally sometimes. Can definitely let that kind of get the better of them in some of these longer series. They have a big chip on their shoulder. It always feels like Winthrop walks into these tournaments with a lot of doubt placed on them as maybe one of the teams to potentially win it all in a lot of them.
And they did back in 2021. Just haven't been back to that mountaintop since then. Have been to the semifinals a couple of times in recent years, but never to that grand finals again since, of course, they won in their inaugural season as a program. And that's kind of the story of a lot of these different teams. You think of Maryville up in the upper bracket, who is looking for their first title in 6 years. You're looking at UST, who didn't make it all the way to the LAN last season, but now is down in the lower bracket as well. Even a team like UCI, a former champion of CLOL, got knocked out a little bit earlier than expected. So all these teams trying to get their chances back at, a repeat of a title that have not just gotten there quite yet. And that's going to be a fun story to watch as well, as we really have had a lot of history in CLOL over the past decade or so, and it's all converging here in 2025 as we get closer and closer to those national championship grand finals in North Carolina, in Raleigh at NC State.
I mean, Winthrop, their lowest placement in their entire program's history is top 8, which I think is really impressive. Their only slight it's not even a real slight. Literally, they just didn't qualify in 2020 because we had a lockdown. So yeah. It's been super impressive to see this roster consistently make it. And again, the team that ended up winning CLOL all of those years ago is so much different. None of those players are still here, or at least in starting positions. So it's, I think, a reasonable kind of expectation that from Winthrop that there's a higher bar to be set. You look at the players that have been playing on this roster, and even their coaching staff bringing in Tails for this season, having Artemis at the helm. There's a lot that is riding on this, and there's always that kind of burden of having to be one of the best teams in collegiate at all times. Every single loss is scrutinized that much more. And for St. Clair, they should still have reasons to be able to win games. There's still some exciting pieces, but we come into this, and St. Clair, over their years, have been a little bit inconsistent when we talk about that. It made top 8 in the last couple of years, but got top 32 in one of their first program finishes. So I think it's just tough, especially in terms of the difference in expectations for these two teams.
Yeah, and for Winthrop, entering that kind of second era with Denethor Mobility getting signed, with Sword coming in. They've had this core now for almost 3 years at this point, competing together as a unit, specifically that Denethor Mobility core. And now, it's been year 3. Hopefully they can eventually reach the heights that we've seen them be able to reach, specifically in the fall portions of the CLOL seasons. This is a Winthrop team that has dominated earlier on in the academic years a lot of the time. They won the 66 land. They've won HughFest a couple of times, and so seeing them eventually get there in the spring is definitely that next step for this organization. It didn't get off to the best start as they dropped down to the lower bracket, but again, maybe one last ride here with this full core of players, or I don't know what exactly their status is, but now in year 3, going on that lower bracket run would certainly be an awesome way for them to finish off the year, to kind of close out what has been a really long and arduous journey for them to get to a point like this. And on the other side for St. Clair, this is a roster that used to be, or a school I should say, that used to be in the the NJCAE. They have now moved over to the East and now are really trying to establish themselves as a collegiate powerhouse in their own right. A lot of history, a lot of stories on the mark here as we are on to the rift for game number 1 of our best of 5 between Winthrop University and St. Clair College at the CLOL 2025 lower bracket round 4.
And we come back into this game. There's been a lot of talk. I know we had a lot of vamp time there. Sorry to everybody at home. We are finally getting games. Obviously, we had those tech issues before for Winthrop. Artemis starting again. One of his first times playing 80 carry in 8 years, which I think is always a fun little bit. But when we're looking at these two teams, Winthrop, they have strong lanes, strong sufficient lanes here, and St. Clair, I think, playing a little bit more of the style that we saw from them in the first couple games versus Fisher last night, where Flocon has this ability to start fights alongside Maddie. You're letting Lig play this good hyperscaler that's going to give them a lot of priority as the game goes on. How Winthrop play on mid-waves, I think, is going to dictate a lot of what happens in this game.
Now you look at the composition for St. Clair and you say, okay, there's an Aphelios on this team. Maybe we want to scale up a little bit in the late game. That's not normally how St. Clair like to play the game. Even when Lig is on these hyper carries, things like the Zeri, the Aphelios, they like to fight, and they like to fight a lot. And so that is what I'm expecting out of Maddie here. If he does not gank a lane in this first clear, I would be pretty surprised, especially on the Sejuani. It just depends on where he wants to try and find that opportunity. Will it be in the bot lane where the Aphelios Milio does not have a lot of agency early on, or maybe will he be targeting the Syndra or the Ambessa?
I'm looking at this right now. I really would actually like to see Maddie maybe make a splash in mid lane. When you're playing against Ryze as the Syndra, especially early, you really want to prioritize on trying to find all-in windows. It'll also set up for level 6 if Flocon does have the unleashed power. He will be able to find maybe potentially some trades onto Sword, and kind of is up to Sword how he plays this Ryze. Individually, he has been a great player that has been a lot better on the facilitators, and on this champion, he should have a pretty easy time of, I get to 1 and 2 items, I'm going to be much stronger than my opponents, and come time for the side lane, no one is from the side from St. Clair going to be able to match me.
Yeah, well, that we're a little further away from that, but if once we get there, the 1-3-1 for Winthrop is going to be really, really good. Even with Denethor on the Gnar, can really take over a side lane. We've seen Denethor Gnar be very good. Remember back in the day, he was known really for his Gnar and his Camille. Back to his roots, I guess, as this champion has become a little bit more prevalent in the meta as of late. As it does look like some summoner spells are being blown here in the bottom lane. Artemis relatively low on mana, but with the double shot, taking Link down to about 200 HP. Hey, Artemis showing off a little bit in the bot lane. He still got it. He can still win out on these trades.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you're playing Lucianami. If you're not winning out on these trades, I might have to report you. I'm sorry. Like, this is
that is also true.
We've got a whole.
Also
there's
true.
a certain bar that we were talking about for Winthrop, and hey, Artemis is no mobility, but for the time being, they're getting some good trades. It is still in favor of St. Clair. It was all of those summoner spells being used, and without very much mana, I think you're very happy about this situation from the side of Lig and Miracle. Flocon is simply just going to push on down towards the bottom side as Wilkow jumps over.
They're going to catch him out, maybe.
Maddie?
Oh, the stun gets spell shielded away from. That's pretty big. Maddie going to be able to run on out of this one as there's not a ton of damage from Wilson or Sword just yet. So Maddie will head back to base most likely. They have just traded full clears and then each getting themselves a respective Scuttle Crab. And with the second spawn of camps already spawning in Wilson's jungle, he'll be starting those up, whereas Maddie will likely be backing and heading back towards the top side.
I think this is not bad. Maddie still has access, and I think more importantly was just sitting there to not only get information onto Wilkow, but also just screening the Nocturne for the time being. I think Lig and Miracle... Oh, Lig is getting very low down there. There's no man. I'm getting worried about what's going on between Artemis and Lig, but as long as they're able to crash this next wave, they're not going to be too upset about the position. Miracle does get the ward. It's only on to only 35 here, and he's got to get one more auto, and then they'll back off.
Nice.
They'll both be spotted here. Don't think there's going to be too much. Could be a flash coming out from Wosao if there's a little bit more action from SCC, but all right, not too bad.
The Infernum definitely helped there, as would have been a little bit of a sticky situation if he had to stay there a couple of seconds longer. So nicely done by Lig and Miracle. They get away with pushing that wave underneath their tower, as well they will now actually rotate to the top side of the map for those grubs to spawn. So remember, you were saying that maybe Winthrop wanted to focus around stacking those dragons. It looks like St. Clair kind of are aware of that and instead are trying to get their bot lane away from that Lucian Army.
Makes sense. We're already seeing that Winthrop are starting to deploy back out. Their bottom lane goes mid instead, just so they can try to cheat. This will mean that St. Clair will have first sight on the top wave, and up to Winthrop. It'll be very early if they end up showing on these grubs. Still 45 seconds before they're going to spawn. So I think right now St. Clair are a little bit advantaged, as Winthrop gave up some gold and experience just to make sure that they were there first, and didn't actually get all that much vision either. So I like this for St. Clair a lot.
So it looks like Artemis and only 35 though are going to match. So topside focus for both of these teams. The grub control going to be potentially their priority. Wilson not level 6 just yet. It looks like he's actually going to maybe start up the dragon of his own, as Maddie will be the one on the Void Grub. So despite the fact that Winthrop have rotated their bottom lane up here, it is actually St. Clair who were able to get that priority around the topside jungle camp.
This is fine. Well, we did say that I wanted to see Winthrop get those dragons. Yes, these are 3 grubs. We'll see how St. Clair is able to use them. They're also a team that doesn't necessarily play the map very wide, so giving them grubs, I think, is not all that much of an advantage when we think about how St. Clair like to fight, which is, hey, we're going to be looking to force you into team fights. You're going to kind of have to walk into us, and don't really look to try to play like the rest of the map, trying to take turrets and getting an economic game from there on.
So we're very closely matched here to start this game off. Again, the stakes of this matchup, 2 teams that are trying to establish themselves as those CLOL powerhouses. Winthrop having won a championship before, but now down here in the lower bracket. At a point that, you know, we were not necessarily expecting. I think if we saw Winthrop St. Clair in like top 8, top 6, we'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But top 12 a little bit earlier than we initially anticipated. So seeing how that maybe affects how these teams want to play the game will definitely be fascinating to watch as we unfold here in a best of 5. As we see the mid laners duking out a little bit, the Unleashed Power comes out from Flocon, going to be matched by Maddie. The Scatter of the Weak does connect, combined with the Glacial Prison, but Sword levels up at the perfect time, and with that Null Magic Mantle, be able to walk around scot-free.
Not only is he leveling up, he has double refillable pot running the entire time, so he just barely is able to survive right there. Good job from, I think, St. Clair to try to find that. They use 2 of their ultimates to force the flash out of Sword. I think that, hey, when Flocon has ultimate again, when Maddie has his ultimate again, maybe that's something that they can try to revisit for the time being. Good job from Sword to be able to survive, and being able to even pick up this wave and the last wave as well before his teleport comes back up is a very big win for Winthrop's mid laner.
Yeah, so going to be able to survive that. Again, no ultimates from either Maddie or Flocon for the rest or at least for the next minute or 2. So burning those cooldowns, they do take away Sword's Flash, which is a big cooldown of its own, but that's a lot of the playmaking power of St. Clair stifled for at least the next couple of minutes. That should give Winthrop some more opportunity to take advantages across the map.
One problem that is starting to arise for Winthrop is their bottom lane. We talked about with this Lucian Nami that they should be having an advantage early on, maybe on one item that gets a little bit stronger for them. But currently down in CS, also Lig with the CLOL, so getting even more gold out of this. We're just seeing SCC continue to grow resources, I think allocate them in the right spots, and their bottom lane in particular has been very standout this season. So good to see that St. Clair are already putting their eggs in the right basket.
Oh, little stun lands. Culling comes out as well. Artemis is out of mana. The Moonlight Vigil will force the barrier and the heal of only 35, and will get Winthrop's bottom lane out safely. But again, the fact that this should be a Lucian Nami dominated early stage of this game, and the fact that it might be ending a little bit sooner than expected, is a very good sign for St. Clair College in this one.
I really... So yesterday when we saw the Lucian Nami, one of the matchups that we saw was with PTA and another one with Electrocute. I really feel strongly that Electrocute has to be the way that we're going here. Oh, Public Execution misses. Bro, we literally, Sejuani ult is coming up in 2 seconds. If we just wait for that to land first, the Public Execution is just way easier.
Okay, well, looks like they might get the kill anyway. Denethor just doesn't use his flash, but it's not going to matter here for St. Clair, despite the Public Execution being whiffed. It's first blood for Sama as the Mbessa gets on the board.
All right, that's fine. And Miracle, he just steps up knowing that only 35 and Artemis cannot fight him back. Great job from St. Clair across the board. They find that pick in top side. They were winning the skirmishes in bottom lane. For Winthrop, now you're looking ultimate here for Wosao, and there is no flash, no barrier.
Yeah, Miracle already has to burn the flash. Flea comes out. Artemis flashes forward and picks up that kill on to Miracle. Now the next target is Lig. Has the Infernum. Can he find one back? No! It's a double kill for the Lucian, and Winthrop answer. They pick up 2 kills in the bottom side.
They both go over to Artemis. Feels good about that part. I think that with the trade earlier and with Lig and Miracle staying in the lane, ending up getting punished. One of their biggest problems last night versus Fisher was that they would overstay or they would over-aggress. Now Maddie, instead of clearing any of his camps, went from top side straight into his bottom side, was looking to try to fish away, got only 35's flash in this instance. And now that'll be Winthrop taking priority. Their bottom lane has time to reset. Sword can TP back into mid. I imagine that's Dragon that is spawning in 30 seconds. Should be going over to the side of Eagles.
Oh, Denethor picks up a solo kill. Says, hey, try me in a 1v1, bud. Takes Sama down. Oh my goodness. That's Winthrop picking up the feats of warfare and getting right back into the lead as well with 2 plates top.
And Denethor even gets those plates. Yeah, like you were just mentioning. So much gold now going over to Winthrop and their top laner. Already up 30 CS in this matchup. And what was going from good now to bad for St. Clair. A full item completed for Artemis. There's some fighting. Wosao's caught.
Yeah, it's going to be Flocon picking that one up. Now Sword on the run of the 1v3. Glacial Prison just coming back online for Maddie at the perfect time. And remember, Sword does not have that flash, so could be in trouble. But with the phase rush, he's going to be able to run underneath this tier 1 turret, get away from the Scout of the Week, and have enough time to pick up this wave down bot.
All right, Denethor teleporting top. This has to be St. Clair's timer to go for Dragon. Lig's also very low. He's already out of this fight. I mean, maybe they can't actually take Dragon. I don't know what Lig was doing, because obviously he just fell. He just got back to lane. Artemis has no culling. Good job from Winthrop's bottom lane to help equalize the situation. Maddie, do your camps, brother. Please. I've been watching your wolves in your crop. They've been up for so long. Okay. Oh, if he did another gank, I think this guy would have been absolutely a sicko in the jungle.
Hey, that's what we know Maddie for, especially on champions like this Sejuani. When he's on the Lilia, hey, maybe some more farming. And maybe the crop doesn't want to be taken, or he picks that one up at least, and now goes right back to the bottom side. Already's a level down against his opposing jungler in the Nocturne, so for Maddie, it's definitely all been about making plays, finding ganks when that ultimate's off of cooldown, but it is coming at the cost of some of that experience, some of that gold.
I'm looking at items right now. I mean, Flocon does have the Blackfire Torch, so a little bit more damage. Unleashed Power is about to come up off of cooldown. St. Clair might be a little hesitant to start this one up, but you can kind of see that Winthrop, they're going to make the trade. They're going to grab 3 grubs for themselves. Not bad. Again, Winthrop being able to have that first Drake feels very good. And for St. Clair, I think you're not too unhappy about having access to a Mountain Drake, especially with how this game is going to continue to go, wanting to get as much resistances as possible. As now with these 3 grubs, I don't think that Winthrop, there's they're going to be the ones that use this grubs the best, but probably not going to see too much of its influence until a couple of their items are completed.
It should be all three of them picked up, even though Maddie hesitating around this area. Oh, he tried to go for the smite steal. Now probably going to have to flash for the wall, as the Arctic Assault was off of cooldown, as that's what he used to get into the pit.
That was on vision, by the way. So he knew how much HP that Void Grub had. Maddie just unfortunately did not time it well. So sucks to see, especially for someone who's been playing for quite a bit. Really had a big peak in 2022 over on the Supernova rosters and even playing on some other collegiate teams. But here on St. Clair feels like has to be the big dog on campus and has really, I think, stepped into a big spot for this team when we talk about being one of the remaining members from that original roster 2 years ago.
Yeah, Maddie kind of been in with St. Clair for a while now, and even though some of these other pieces have come in, obviously Ricky has been a part of that core as well, but now Sama has kind of been slotted in as a starter for the duration of this national championship. Having Maddie be that person, that's like a leader at this point for this team, certainly is very cool for a player like that. And so right now, as we take a look at the game at 15 minutes, about a 5-year gold lead here for Winthrop University. As the Paranoia has come out, going to get sent towards Flocon in the mid lane, but he just uses that Scout of the Week to get away from any sort of trouble. Maddie on the way as well to make sure that he's completely fine.
You know what's funny? Because he is feared and he also has Phase Rush, actually gets away from him a lot faster. So pretty interesting tech there. Denethor taking the bottom lane tier 1. Someone wants to keep going for this. There's no ults, but
use the ultimate already here, but the Eclipse is doing a lot of damage on this Ambessa. Very low HP, waiting for Maddie to come in and try to seal the deal. Denethor, no flash, should get killed. The Heartsteel stack combined with that ulti going to finally take him down. Ooh. But the response from Winthrop will be massive, as Sword has already used that ulti to get down to the bottom lane himself. Already taking down Sama. Maddie will be the next target. It's 2 more kills back into Winthrop's pocket.
And how many waves are we going to be giving up here? Because this mostly goes over to Sama and for Sword to be able to pick these up. Invest the teleport now, and they lose out on this topside wave. Overall, I think an even trade for these two teams. Obviously, 2 kills do advantage Winthrop a lot. And we'll have to see how much of this they actually end up kind of losing across the board. I think St. Clair no longer going to really be in a position to contest for this Rift Herald now. But getting a turret for themselves on the opposite side, not bad.
Oh, Lig! He flashes forward to try to take down only 35 at Artemis, and he's gonna do it! Has the red white guns, picks up the shutdown on the Lucian. This guy's just insane at this point. Finally, Wilson will take him down, as Denethor is also teleported to the top side, gonna try to finish off some more kills here for St. Clair. Miracle will fall. He gets Nard back in the wall, as Sama is stunned up and taken down. It's the bubble from only 35 to seal the deal, as Winthrop goes 3 for 1 on the trade.
But St. Clair, like, why are we making these plays? Surely the game does not feel that over at this moment. Sama just died bottom lane, TP'd, and then died again. Now you've lost summoner spells on both of your bottom lanes here. I mean, St. Clair, that could not have been worth it. And Winthrop will say thank you for the donation of 3 kills. Thank you for giving us the Herald as well. And are definitely feeling good about their spot in this game now with another turret taken by Denethor.
And if they're able to win this game with Artemis subbing in for Mobility, who is one of Winthrop's superstars at this point, has had such a awesome career here at the university on Rock Hill, that's a good sign for what is to come, as we're going to get a look at that top lane fight. Again, Lig flashing forward here, absolutely ballistic, and he is able to pick up 1 kill, which is nice, but then the collapse is just way too good.
Yeah, like, you get the shutdown, that's great, but now it's 3 kills going over. You've now lost teleport. Part of this play was the fact that, you know, you were already up at least 2 teleports from the play because Ryze teleported mid, Gnar ended up here in the top side. You could have tried to play the map a little bit wider here. We're getting an engage on live.
We're right back to it. Oh, what an engage from Denethor. 2-man Gnar ultimate into the wall. Sword comes through with the Realm Warp, as that's going to be 3 more dropping here for St. Clair. Winthrop dominating here in this mid game.
Now they can just take over mid as well. Dragon's going to be spawning. This game has gone from bad to worse here for St. Clair. As with the Rift Herald, they might even be able to go for a second turret.
Oh, Lig is just
dead. Sure, let's just keep going.
Why not? Let's send another charge right down into the mid lane. It'll be Wilson sending that Rift Herald into the tier 2, as they'll pick that one up rather easily. Gold lead now 5,000 in favor of Winthrop University. The Saints not having a good time at this point. His Sword is now starting to get the side laning involved as well. What a turnaround. It looked like St. Clair and Winthrop are going to be neck and neck for a while, but it's really been Winthrop winning play after play recently.
Can they escape from the situation? There's no rune prison. Okay, let only 35 die. This will not be the dragon going over to St. Clair, or to the side of Winthrop, but look at the line of play from the last 4 minutes. It was the bottom lane kill onto Sama and to Maddie, moving into the top side. You still have the scaling elements of Sword on this Rise. He already is now 6 minutes away from Rod of Ages completion. Completed Seraphs here 19 minutes in. This game does not get easier for St. Clair to play, and I think that they have now put themselves unnecessarily in a hole for this. I mean, Denethor now has 2 completed items. How is anybody from St. Clair going to match him, much less this Rise?
Signature pick on the Gnar, as it's gotten off to a very good start, as we have said. Topside really stepping up here for Winthrop in this game. We'll see how far they can continue here. Wilson has a flash over the wall, as goes a little bit too aggressively into an invade on the top side of the map. But for St. Clair, I mean, now you're really relying on Lig to scale up and get to 3 items, but that's going to not be for a while, and Winthrop can get a lot on the map in that time.
So this will be Infinity Edge soon done here for Lig. He'll have his flash coming up within the next 45 seconds. Not bad. That'll be, I think, a timer for St. Clair to find themselves potentially another play here on the map. But like you were just mentioning, it's going to be a while. He's only just now finishing his 2nd item, and even with Emilio, you're just now waiting. Maybe here? Oh, Sama just gets evaporated. Okay, goodbye, brother.
That's a lot of damage as Sword comes through with Wilson on the Nocturne. Aldacon going to be the next target here for the Golden Eagles, as St. Clair left scratching their heads as to how to try to maneuver and navigate the rest of this game, as this just has been pure and utter domination from Winthrop with a sub in their roster, by the way, here in Game 1.
Very big with Denethor.
Denethor died. Denethor got to kill the side lane.
All right, cool. And now he just takes his bottom tier 2. St. Clair are lost right now. They feel like there's just too much kind of happening around the map. A lot of their members are just dying on side lane, which is making this game particularly very difficult. And now with the Otacon, now with all those blood petals in their back pocket, Winthrop are very firmly in the lead. 7,000 gold at 21 minutes. And this game was very even, like you were mentioning, right? Just they were neck and neck for a little bit. Obviously, St. Clair was kind of following up on plays and kind of catching Winthrop out here and there. But in a matter of minutes, Winthrop have absolutely blown open this game.
And now St. Clair has to go back to the drawing board a little bit. I mean, obviously you still have this game to play out, and Lig has an Infinity Edge, but when your mind starts shifting over to Game 2, I mean, I feel like St. Clair got a lot of what they wanted. They got Maddie on his Sejuani, which seems to have been the strategy so far here for St. Clair, at least as of late. Lig and Miracle on that tried and true bot lane that actually didn't really fall too far behind. It's hard to see what exactly St. Clair can do in terms of draft. It has to come through the way that they pick their fights, I think, moving forward in this series. This could be a good one.
Maybe they're finding this.
On to Wilson,
okay,
they pick up the shutdown. That is big.
Yeah, not bad, but still a lot of questions here. There's nothing really on the table, and I like what Artemis is doing here, just trying to use the CLOL and clear most of this wave out. It's an engage on the crawl. I just think this is really fake. Oh, wait a minute.
Very out of position.
Okay.
Oh, from downtown, the long-range shuriken from Lig will pick up another kill. Those are pretty massive gold swings in favor of St. Clair. Problem is not a lot else to fight for across the map right now.
And they're going to be missing some of these spells coming in. I mean, a minute and a half. Sword has to be worried. They are showing 4 on mid, so this Rise can try to stand his ground, maybe even join the rest of his team. Denethor is starting to look. He's getting close with that Mega. He's going to push out, knows that Miracle still has that ultimate. But that's a perfectly fine pick coming in for St. Clair. It evens up this game a little bit. Those were good shutdowns as well going over. But all of that gold, I think, still looking onto Lig, onto the Zephelios. Infinity Edge and Collector completed, but is it going to be enough going up against Winthrop, where their control of midwave has been really, really good, and again, these side lanes are so potent. Sword 2 minutes away now from that Rod of Ages completed, and now has the Seekers.
Yeah, he's about to be 2 levels up on Flocon, which is going to be a very good place to be on this Rise. And more picks have to be found here for St. Clair. I was about to say, it's nice vision toggle here by observers. Allows for Lig to pick up that kill onto Wilson again. Another pick, and that's what they're going to have to continue to look for. Maddie lands the Glacier Prison on a sword, but not that full range circle. Denethor hitting Mega, only stunning up one.
Artemis!
Realm Warp does not get used. Sword's getting collapsed upon, but Artemis already pulped up Culling. But Lig is still alive. Artemis flashes forward, goes on a killing spree by taking down Flowcon, and now Lig has to flash away from him to rejoin the rest of his team. Only 35 now, the target has been separated, gets stunned up by Maddie, but now Sama's the target. Nearly takes down Sword, but Sword will live. Now Denethor trying to finish off this kill on the Lig. It's a 2v3 across the map. Maddie dashing forward again. How is St. Clair almost winning this fight? But it's Winthrop who end up coming out on top.
It's 4 for 2 there on the side of Winthrop as Artemis is going to chase him down. He's going to get spotted. Artemis, I can't believe it. In one of his first games playing AD carry in 8 years here on the stage as a sub for mobility in game number 1 of the lower bracket. Artemis and Denethor absolutely run through that team fight and make it hell for St. Clair and their carries. Separated in the fight. Summoner's now down. Lig's gonna finally fall as the dragon spawns. And Winthrop should be looking at a massive advantage here in game number 1.
It looked like St. Clair found their opportunity. They locked down the Nocturne, picked them off early on. They seem to have separated Sword and only 35 from the rest of the team, but then it was all Denethor and Artemis who were able to save that fight here for Winthrop.
I'll just be honest though, like Sword buys so much time. Again, having Zonias, having the Rod of Ages complete in the middle of this fight as well as the Seraphs. Just look at the backline though, like Sword is wasting so much of Maddie and Sama's time, and then Artemis and Denethor, like we had noted, putting so much pressure onto the carries of St. Clair. Lig is unable to fight in the back half of this. I mean, just over the wall. I thought this was impressive from Sama. His ultimate was just about to come back up. Maybe with that public execution, this does turn. Maddie needs to be a little bit closer to the wall. Lig just barely misses out on a Q spread from Infernum. And that potentially could have gotten them at least one more kill, maybe a second with the Collector and Infinity Edge completed.
Yeah, Sword and Denethor. We're like 1 HP at the end of that fight as we're setting a Realm Warp in across the map over to the mid lane. And already the combat has begun. Another fight. Lig nearly taken down. Another two-man Gnar into the wall from Denethor. And that is already Miracle dropping. Maddie will be the next to follow as it's another 2-0 for the Golden Eagles as Baron is now on the map.
That's gonna be their objective, and with Otacon, you have to imagine that Winthrop are gonna be looking to finish out this game. We've had individual moments that have looked really good for St. Clair, but they have not been able to piece together a win here in this game. Wilson has to be very careful, should be getting some healing from only 35. And the solo lanes, I think, for Winthrop having to have a big step up in this game. Sword in particular getting a lot of focus, but hasn't died this game, is a little bit ahead of his opponent in Flowcon on this Syndra, and has been, you know, a point of criticism in years past. And I feel like this is, again, a perfect meta for Winthrop and their team. Just, they need to be able to grab those wins, and they need to push themselves in these series of CLOL Championship.
Now, this is taking things to an absolute extreme, but you know, Winthrop probably very much favored here in this game. A lot of what the problems we have seen from Winthrop have not been at the early stages of the game. It's been, you know, around the 20 to 25 minute mark when they have a lead and are not able to fully close it out. Now, I think that they're in a big enough lead here to not have that be a problem. They've played this game out very well. But that is where things have maybe fallen apart here for Winthrop a little bit in the past, specifically in their matchup against Western, now against a fellow East Conference opponent. We'll see if St. Clair have anything to say about it. It is a little bit of cope, though. I think Winthrop and the Baron buff are going to get so much here. They already have.
I'm glad you were doing work for St. Clair there. You know, or St. Clair. We're already doing it on the broadcast, so you know, just going that extra mile. I had to pull teeth with Simo to say nice things about St. Clair after a couple of those games.
You know what?
So
I've loved watching this team all year. There still is a lot of time left in this best of 5. Lig getting close to his 3rd item as well on the Aphelios. We've seen these big Aphelios-based defenses in the past. You just throw out a crazy Moonlight Vigil and things everyone gets one shot somehow. That's kind of what St. Clair are looking at as a win condition. At least step 1 of a potential win condition for them. Unless it's a pick on a side lane onto somebody like Denethor, which I don't know if that's going to be possible at this point. He's pretty impossible to kill.
He has a lot of HP, also has just shown that he's able to solo kill either of the solo laners of St. Clair. I mean, Baron plus Otacon, we talked about how playing on mid-wave is going to dictate a lot of this, and you can kind of see that while Artemis, having, you know, a little bit more range than the Aphelios, hasn't really been able to take control. It seems like for right now, they're going to be playing on 2 lanes, and for this Rise, I think grouping up as Winthrop on this Rise is perfectly fine. You have the Relorp as well. Flocon...
No.
Not again, not again!
Oh, he gets it! It's going to be responded to by Lig, but here comes the paranoia. Wilson is going to find the overextended Aphelios, and even though he gets taken out about 40% HP, it's not going to matter. That's the big carry for St. Clair down, and that should very likely be game number 1. Glacial Prison lands here on Artemis, but that's not going to matter.
Sword?
The sword is between the 2 Nexus turrets, and he's going to destroy St. Clair anyway. Maddie, the last remaining survivor for the Saints in game number 1, and he won't be for long. The sub AD carry, the coach Artemis, gets a triple kill, ends 10-2-5 on the game, and Winthrop University strike with a vengeance in game number 1.
A very dominant one. It seems like St. Clair, they're going to have to face some old demons, not only playing them last year, but 2 matches in a row. Yesterday against Fisher, and now here against Winthrop. NECC back-to-back, still proving that they're a dominant conference here in CLOL 2025. And just looking really clean, I think, all things considered. Some minor hiccups in the game, but dominant performance, I think, from the solo lanes there. And Artemis as well being able to hold his own.
He did more than hold his own in that game. I mean, he picked the Lucian Nami lane, which is supposed to have like a lot of high agency, but maybe a little bit more skill expression. He then won the bottom lane out, with the help of Wilson, obviously, on the Nocturne, but then turning that into what was eventually a 10-kill performance for a sub, or for a coach-turned emergency sub. Is a pretty big accomplishment. As you know, on that point that you were saying about the NECC, they still have all 4 of their teams still in the tournament right now. And if Winthrop and Northwood both win and hold on, that'll hold true in the top 8, which would be a pretty crazy.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Again, we came into this matchup, we saw the draft, we're like, okay, if St. Clair can get to late, it's great, but we never actually got to see like a full 5-on-5, and St. Clair still have a lot of their issues that we're seeing, where overforcing for plays. Maddie kind of getting screwed on some of his jungle pathing with things that are happening in the game. So hopefully St. Clair are going to be able to bounce back. And I wonder what the situation in the top lane is going to be with another game, I think, pretty disappointing coming in from Sama.
Still a lot of options left here for St. Clair, but all of a sudden, after taking that loss in game number 1, a game that maybe you felt like you had the opportunity to win without mobility on the starting 5, things could look a little bit different going forward here for them. What adjustments can they make? We'll find out as we return after a few short minutes from this break before the Game 2 draft. Welcome back, everybody, to coverage of the 2025 College League of Legends Championships. We are here for game number 2 of Winthrop University against St. Clair College. Now, Winthrop had a sub come in. It was their coach Artemis at the AD carry position, and they still ended up winning that game in just about 30 minutes against the champions out of the East. However, things looking a little bit different on both sides this time around. Mobility back in the bottom lane for game number 2 for Winthrop, whereas St. Clair will be subbing in Ricky Lafleur as their top laner, replacing Sama going forward.
Yeah, Sama having a really rough game. I think just wanting to get it out of the way and let Ricky play. Obviously, when you look at this roster, Ricky has been on the team for a little bit of time now, so hopefully they can lean on his experience. And maybe we get to see Sama later on in the series, right? Like, just give him a little bit of time to breathe. Hopefully he's able to kind of bounce back from this. And the rest of St. Clair in particular really need to get their heads on straight and get ready for this game number 2, as game 1 felt very dominant, and a little bit of already we're starting to see some of that desperation that we got from them in Fisher last night.
Yeah, and we'll see what that change ends up looking like here for St. Clair specifically. Ricky, I feel like, has a lot of similar champions to Sama in terms of champion pool, like, the Scion, as we saw in game number 5. He can whip out that pocket Olaf that we saw him having time on in the open qualifier specifically, but I think is a little bit less afraid to, or maybe more fearless in terms of just flipping a little bit, going aggressive, and trying to be the difference maker for better or for worse here for St. Clair. So that is what they're looking at. They're also looking at a little bit of extra experience here now on their roster, bringing in somebody who's been with this team for a while at this point.
All right. Looks like bans are staying very similar this time. St. Clair going for both a Camille and a Gwen ban, which I think a little interesting, maybe preparing for a very specific matchup in topside. I think that Jax maybe gets a little bit of value here for in the topside for Ricky. Maybe we see a little bit something different here. And now that St. Clair is on the blue side, is this the game we're going to be seeing paired up with a Nefiri potentially from either side? As seems like St. Clair have really avoided this champion and has become a bit of a hole when we talk about their champion pools.
Yeah, it wasn't a priority for either squad in game number 1, as the Nocturne obviously worked pretty well here for Wilson, all things considered, in that first match victory. But for Maddie, yeah, that's continued to be a question. The Sejuani's still on the board. It looks like this time, actually, it'll be St. Clair to take away that Lucian. Now, the Milio has been very highly prioritized, actually really rising up in priority here in the College Championship specifically. So we'll see if that becomes what gets picked up for Winthrop specifically right now to try to take that away, as this would also be a pick for mobility that would allow for a lot of hyperscaling. It's something that actually League plays a lot of as well.
So if they see Lucian Milio and they're picking Zeri, I'm just worried about this here, Grapes. Like, you're probably looking to break up the Milio combo here. I think it's much more effective to just get rid of it and not have to deal with it. They're going to go for double range. If this ends up being the Electrocute variant of Lucian, I feel like Winthrop's bottom lane are going to be in a bit of a tough spot. Obviously, you can scale, but you don't have like an overwhelming range advantage as the game goes on, and Zeri takes a long time before a lot of her damage starts to come on through. So St. Clair kind of feeling, I feel like this is a pretty good spot for them, but instead going for the Nami, which I think has a better matchup spread like long term and gives them engage, just doesn't have the same damage as Emilio, and obviously Emilio I think covers for a lot of weaknesses later on in the game.
Yeah, a classic bot lane matchup has been set up here. Lucian Nami against Zeri Lulu. This is like 2022 core right now coming through from both of these teams.
Yeah.
We'll see what the priority on the bot lane does look like here for St. Clair, because, as you said, the Nami means you really have to prioritize that early game. We saw that work well for Artemis in only 35 in game number 1. And now with Maddie on the Xin Zhao, so something with a little bit more agency in that early game and a little bit more damage, I think the bot lane has to be targeted here for St. Clair.
Really quick aside, Maddie, if he loses this game, we're probably seeing him on game 3 Sejuani. So Denethor going for the Jax blind, recognizing that there are some top laners that have been taken away, and Bessa on the side of Winthrop, and those two that we had mentioned in the first half. Now back end, you can kind of start to prune and really pick for beautiful matchups in the top side. But we see the Vladimir ban, which is a good takeaway from Flocon. But we're seeing this from Winthrop. Feels like they really want to try to go for a scaling composition here. Jax has good skirmishing. Technically could go in the jungle if they feel like it, so that flex potential is there.
Yeah, and not only also did Winthrop and St. Clair have this reverse sweep happen to them in the college championships last year in 2024. There's actually even more recent history between them just a couple of days ago in the NACE LAN that happened in Orlando, Florida. Winthrop won that series in the GSL stage 2-0, and in that game, in game number 2 of that series, it was actually Sword Zoe that really had a great time. So that is why you see that Zoe being taken away from Winthrop in the second ban phase. You also now are going to get the Gnar taken away from Denethor, as they are potentially suspecting that Jax could go in the jungle.
All right. Probably expecting a Taliyah here. I think it would do the most amount of damage versus what Winthrop are showing. Has a good enough spread when we talk about matchups into the Azir. Also just gives them the ability to kind of play more dynamically as like a pick composition. When we look, you're going to have so much damage coming in from this Lucian playing at range, trying to all-in one target. Now you have this Taliyah and Zhao. It'll be up to Winthrop early on. Mitigate losses. Try to find, some certain timers you can force out summoner spells, especially from this Taliyah with the Azir ultimate.
We're all thinking it. We're all... Guys, I'm coming into
Ricky,
sub.
my boy.
I'm picking 5-pick.
I need you to sub in
And...
for Sama. Okay! It's not Sion!
That's not Sion. It's still kind of boring, but it's not Sion.
Look, we're already making adaptations, right? Like, Maddie's off Sejuani. We've gotten, a top laner that isn't named Sion for either of our 2 top laners coming out from St. Clair. Feeling okay about that. Now, Winthrop, what is their answer going into this pick? Remember, Jax can be a flex. I think perfectly fine to play into the Aatrox, but if they really wanted to, I think being able to flip that matchup and get something a little bit better here for Denethor feels fine. So with the Renekton, Winthrop is going to be sending in this Jax into the jungle. Great skirmishing there, and I'm looking at this composition from Winthrop. They're so strong on 2 items. Just having the access to with this Azir, they shred open so many of these objectives. St. Clair basically need to be winning from the early game. They need to find timers, and I might just be looking at our mid laners here. Just having Flocon on this Taliyah, being able to play the map is so important, but that hasn't necessarily been a strength of St. Clair so far here in the Collegiate Championship.
Yeah, I think what St. Clair end up faltering with is, even if they do get ahead, just understanding how to play the middle parts of that game. Once you get to the 20-minute mark, once the dragons are starting to spawn, the Otacon becomes available on the map. Over-indexing, spending too much time out of the map before resetting, redeploying has been something that I feel like we've seen the St. Clair team do a little bit throughout their time in the Eastern Conference and even early on here in the Collegiate Championships. So we'll see if they can fix some of that here. I will say that Flocon's Taliyah has actually been very strong throughout this season so far. He's had a number of good performances on it throughout the year. So excited to see him on this one, especially up against the Azir. Should have a good amount of time to clear out those waves and to impact that map. And we'll see what they can do from there.
And we look at this matchup and we're saying, okay, like, for the side of St. Clair, they have to play an aggressive early game. They have the tools to be able to get a lot of work done here. And if you're going to try and go late, we already saw them in the last game try to play a composition that's going to be very strong a little bit later on into the game. Didn't work out, so maybe it feels like a flip in the style. They already have recognized that Winthrop have not been absolutely bulletproof in the laning phase, so let's see if we can take it. Now mobility's back in the roster, so I wonder how this is really going to shake up some of those matchups if we finally get to see Lig versus mobility play up against each other.
Yeah, hey, we were waiting for this matchup, and so if we finally get it, our bot laners going at it. Hey, I guess it didn't work too well for Lig in game number 1, even with Artemis subbing in, so maybe that is not the best sign, but we have seen this guy, really level up his play throughout the year, be that replacement to Rockboom on the St. Clair roster, coming over from the LATAM leagues and looking really, really good. So I'm hopeful that Lig can have a good performance, and he's going to need to if St. Clair want to stay alive and not fall down 0-2 in this series. Again, elimination on the line for one of these 2 programs here today, which is not a spot where they were expecting to be.
And these are our 4th and our 5th seed coming in, like our 5th and 6th seed. So they were expected to go a lot further in this tournament. Already, CLOL 2025, the bracket has already started to get shaken up with some of the upsets that we got from the upper bracket. And that just means that every single game now, especially for these two teams, is going to be an elimination game, like you're mentioning. And so, not making top 8, even if they, if they were to lose here, I think is a very big indictment. I think one more so than the other. I think when we came into this tournament, obviously with St. Clair being 5th, they were expected to go a lot further. But you look at where their conferences is, and I really want to hamper more on this. Just this year, it was going to be, is NECC finally going to take it? Is NECC going to be able to prove themselves up against another conference in the North who historically has just been the best conference for CLOL, consistency-wise? So coming out, I mean, this is NECC versus the East champs. The East has been always dominated by Western. Finally, they get a new champion for the last couple years, but St. Clair haven't exactly been a program that has been able to make very deep runs. They've made top 8 now 2 years in a row, which is great. Just being able to break that top echelon is always going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's what gets you into that next tier that becomes potentially a little bit harder to get to. I mean, obviously, there's so many stacked teams here, and especially because of the way that the bracket has shaped out, one of these teams is going to be saying goodbye a little bit early. And right now, looks like it could be St. Clair, given how that result of game number 1 did go. But still a lot of League of Legends to play. We've seen teams turn around on just a snap of a fingers earlier on in the season and just throughout CLOL historically. So that is what we have our eyes on here to try and see if that can become the case here for a team like St. Clair. They're all, been together all season long. They've all played at these LANs together. They've had a lot of experience together as a team this season. And so now they've got to tap into that a little bit against Winthrop.
They got to get into their bag a little bit here because you were talking about for St. Clair that they've been together. Well, Winthrop feel like they kind of have them trumped there too. They've had most of this lineup for multiple years now. St. Clair, they've had to lose recently Bakery Boy as well as Rock Broom, two I think important pillars to this lineup and this program, their success around collegiate as a whole. So pretty tough matchup. I just think that for St. Clair, they've played a lot less games in the last 8 days. So I'm hoping that they are feeling a little bit fresher. Winthrop, I feel like this is the last hurdle before they get a big break. Before, hey, we have a couple days off. We're not traveling all the way back. Obviously, both of these teams were at NACE over in Florida, so having to travel back, immediately play some of their best of 5s feels pretty tough. And you are still looking, I mean, right now, the East is down to 2 last seeds. It's St. Clair and Western that are finally left in the tournament. NECC, you've got some seats to spare, okay? You've got some teams. All 4 of your teams are still in the tournament. You could drop one, I think it's okay, guys.
That's so funny. It's so funny because that's what we kind of all knew going in. Hey, NECC, this conference is stacked. We probably have 4 teams that are going to be in the top 8 conversations going, right off the bat into CLOL, and that's become the case. Even a team like Northwood who struggled a little bit in the NECC regular season and the like, they're coming to bat a little bit. They beat UCI. They even almost, they played a competitive series against Maryville at the very least. So NECC's looking good as our number 3 seed in Winthrop University is already up 1-0 in this series over St. Clair. But can they strike back? We'll find out as we head on the rift for game number 2.
All right. Early game priority coming in for St. Clair. Winthrop very strong on 2 items, and in terms of skirmishing, should have a range advantage when we talk about their mid laner in particular. Sword already getting the better of Flocon. I think you can also just talk to the experience of a player like Sword, having played for so long and even being able to play in Tier 2.
Oh no.
Flocon getting targeted here in a 1v3, just going way too far forward and getting taken down for first blood. It's only 35 picking up the kill, and Wilson has started off with Counter-Strike.
It's tough. I mean, even the Counter-Strike is fine, though. It's great for some of his AoE camps. If he wants, he can just go ahead and start Wolves instead, and he'll be perfectly fine. That's also the flash away from Flocon, so if Wilson comes back mid, there's a kill there with the Leap Strike. Flocon has to be very careful now in this mid lane matchup. He'll get it back before hitting level 6, but even then, that is kind of how the matchup ends up being played out. Once the Azir gets his ultimate, you're always looking to try to fish out summoner spells away from this Talia.
Already mission accomplished, at least for the first 5 minutes, as that is going to be a flashless mid laner right now for St. Clair. We'll see if Wilson wants to continue to try to punish this area of the map or not, but regardless, an early advantage thrown over to the Golden Eagles side. As we start this game off again, the expectations. Bot lane gonna have to be the focus here for St. Clair. They are running Ignite here on Lig's Lucian alongside the Nami, who has gone for the Summon Airy, but it is the Electrocute on Lig, so that is gonna be bot lane domination prioritized here for the Saints.
Right, taking a look at our junglers, they are pathing to opposite sides of the map. Jack's heading on up towards this Renekton, but more than likely what's going to end up happening is probably a full clear finish. Doesn't really want to try to see if he can do anything. I think for the side of Wilson, he is more so focused on making sure that he is there to provide counter ganks, there to cover his lanes. Seems like he's actually going to be crossing, maybe with Sword being able to fight for priority. They could try to invade onto Maddie inside his jungle.
Does have level 3 first. Doesn't go into the pit, but instead heads back to the mid lane. He has this flash of his own. Is still going to stun up Flocon, but there's not enough damage. In fact, Flocon's going to get one back as Wilson just took a little bit too much damage under the tower. Sword will find the response, but now Maddie is here to try to make it a 2-for-2 overall. Denethor here to try to make it some sort of response. So when lightning comes out, Maddie finally finds a kill, but now it's a 1v1. Denethor will have the empowered stun, but instead just uses the slice and dice first. Denethor going to try to win the duel with the Q. Will call the Meek and pick up feats of warfare for the Golden Eagles.
Flocon dying there so early. I think it was an overforce there from the side of Winthrop. It only barely goes in their favor with Denethor able to move on down. Oh no.
Oh, God.
And now
How did
Ricky
that
just
happen?
walks into the enemy jungle. He's trying to chase out Denethor. He doesn't know that Wilson is already respawned and back on the top side here. They should have known. They're saying, okay, he's done 3 camps. He has his blue buff. Surely he has to be back on his red. St. Clair just give over a bunch of kills now over to Winthrop.
Yeah, that's a big mistake for Ricky to go in. You saw that Wilson had the blue buff, going into the mid lane gank, so you knew that his top lane camps were still up, and that's where he would be.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of an overextension for Ricky, as that is now 4 kills to 2 in favor of the Winthrop Golden Eagles. Now, the good thing is that Lig and Miracle have won out in terms of these CS advantages down in the bot lane. They've already forced mobility back to base. The problem is, there's no real other areas of the map to try to force for. We have a gank in the mid lane. Maddie already burned his flash and forced Sword to very low HP as he was able to get away. But now Lig goes too far forward. He stays for an extra wave and will get taken down by only 35. Oh no.
All right, you know what? I'm just going to respect Lig for the rest of the series because he is a true AD carry in his heart. One more wave. The principle of one more wave is truly embedded in this player. As that's so detrimental. We were just talking about it's the one lane that right now SCC have a pretty decent advantage in. Now Mobility gets to farm that wave out. He gets to push this next one. His jungler's on his side of the map. They have the summoner spell advantage. Like, Winthrop are so excited about the prospects of this game already, finding themselves the advantage in mid, and now every single lane seems like they're getting ahead of their counterpart.
We got a lot of trading up at the top side all of a sudden. Denethor gonna get collapsed upon by Ricky. The Q3 will find its mark, and St. Clair finally get a little bit of answer back.
Denethor, man. What's going on, bro? We just used our flash. Like, we have no teleport either. We're just going to miss out on a wave. A very much an unforced error coming in from pretty experienced top laner now, especially when we talk about his experience here on Winthrop and being able to play across the league. But, yeah, I don't think it changes all that much. Wilson?
I will say, hey, St. Clair love to fight. They love to scrap, and they have Maddie on the Xin Zhao, who already has a kill in this game. That's going to be how they have to continue to play things out to find some sort of response, find some sort of way back into this one. As Winthrop already up 1,000 gold, and they have the scaling composition, all things considered. So it's going to be up to Maddie to really find these plays. He heads back to the mid lane, looks in for Wilson, who's already chunked to half HP, and they're going to try to at least find some sort of major objective, but with Ricky getting pushed in, the Grub's really not going to be a target for them.
Yeah, this is part of the fact that, I mean, with Ricky finding that kill onto Denethor, pushing in the wave, it meant that Denethor now for this wave and the next should be able to shove very easily for Grubs. Saw that Maddie was trying to play for it. Flocon does have his ultimate and has the Weaver's Wall if he really needs it again. Seems like Denethor is trying to trade resources. That's the ultimate down from Ricky as well as Jax in the area.
Oh, he flashes forward, doesn't know that Wilson is here. He's going to leap strike on top of him. Going to be a 2v1. Tough opportunity here, but Ricky will survive for a little bit longer. Waits long enough for Maddie to join the fight, but Denethor holds the dominance for so long and just baits St. Clair into their demise.
And that's the flash. That's the ultimate. That's also going to be the grubs now going over to Winthrop. Denethor, I think that the solo kill is actually a good death. That's a very Zeus-like death. Just dying in a side lane, not getting too much, but ends up being in a pretty big advantage on the wave. Good job from Winthrop and the rest of their team to be able to secure those kills, as well as now getting more objectives. Even their bottom lane, I still think, is doing very fine for themselves here. It's a minor advantage going over to the side of St. Clair and Ligan Miracle, but very little turret damage has come on through. Seems like Wilson's probably just going to have to jump out of the pit. Doesn't have a ward, or has a ward, so he'll be fine.
We'll take the one grub if you're St. Clair, but there's still a lot left to do after what has happened and what has unfolded, especially around the top side of the map. Denethor 3-1-1. We see Wilson having very high impact in this game already. And if you're St. Clair, left wondering what there is left to do to try to come back into this one. Still around the bot lane, although I will say Maddie really just has not spent any time down there. It's just been a top lane focus, even with the Lucian Nami on League and Miracle.
Yeah, I mean, what else is he really... In terms of the bottom lane, like, we haven't really seen too many instances where he's on that side of the map and they've gotten damage. Maybe now with St. Clair and with this Sin Zhao finally showing up around the bottom lane, there's an angle, but Zeri's only just now getting back. She's going to be a little bit late, and our supports are taking their recalls right now, so I don't think there's a very realistically a timer here. And I will say we also didn't see too much of a punish outside of those first, the first blood. Then they found the second kill onto Flocon. He's about half a level up on his opponent right now and has an individual lead, so a full wave to himself. I think that this Talia has really started to come back in this game.
Oh, but as you say that,
right,
might be a
nice.
caster curse as there comes the shuffle. Flocon flashes away. The tidal wave from Miracle going to save him for a little bit longer. But looks like Wilson could just leap strike one more time and find the kill on the Flocon. But he might have overextended for that one. Maddie comes in, Crescent Card in, and there's the shutdown back onto the Jax.
You guys can thank me at home. I'm making sure that there's stuff happening on the screen right now.
That was really well done. You timed that beautifully. It's great.
Ah, okay, look, I even talked about bottom lane. I mean, look, Lulu's back. It's a pretty good chunk down onto mobility. He's probably going to miss out on this next wave as well. Maddie is coming. If they can get more of a push, they can start this dragon. You see the teleport from Denethor. You're going to have a numbers advantage.
Looks like instead, he's going to back away. Dragon is available. No side has picked up that first Cloud Dragon yet. But it looks like nobody is going to focus on that one, at least for a little bit longer here. That next spawn of the grub should be coming up soon. And then we'll see maybe some more prioritization towards the top side of the map. Eyes now really turn towards this bot lane for St. Clair. They have not gotten to that first item just yet, but you can see the damage they're able to output onto mobility at this point, and you really don't want to make sure that this area doesn't get ahead. As Miracle was, or sorry, only 35 on a ward right there. The culling comes out. It's not enough to finish off the Lulu, and here comes mobility. Lightning crash in. League and Miracle are so low. Mobility flashes forward, but is unable to finish anything up.
No.
There comes the reinforcements as the Goon Squad has arrived. Flocon with the Weaver's Wall. Maddie with the Wind Becomes Lightning comes in, and it will be 2 kills back for St. Clair.
They finally are able to do something about this bottom lane coming in for Winthrop. It's going to be the Dragon as well going over to St. Clair. But look at what they're losing. I think that you really needed to make this play for the game to be advanced, but you're losing another mid wave here for the Talia. This top lane is continuing to get pressured by Denethor. And your bottom lane obviously losing out on a few of those waves. You're not super happy about that if you're on the side of St. Clair. Hoping that Sword and Denethor, again, leaning on these solo laners, felt like a bit of an interesting decision to make when we saw this roster composition. Sword flies back in, but ends up deciding against it. Gets a lot of movement speed alongside the Shirelias.
That might have overextended a little bit as Lig and Miracle have made their way to the mid lane. Oh, Wilson jumps back over the pit. He's 2 levels up on Maddie, by the way. That's a lot of farming that this Jax has done, but not enough to stop the Lucian Nami poke as he's down to half HP and is going to be forced to go back to base.
You should always be looking for that as Trickster, so I respect that from Wilson coming on through. Sword, low-key was kind of hoping that he would sweep on in and try to find something, because I think there was very much an angle, especially with Lig not having the summoner spells. Seems like they wanted to save that, especially for the Rift Herald that is just now spawned. Or the second set of grubs, very early on for that one. But right now, it seems like this is going to be advantage towards Winthrop. I mean, not having your summoner spells and missing out on the Nami ult is going to be pretty painful for St. Clair to walk in. Also, no Crescent Guard makes this particularly difficult. But both of the mid laners do have teleport if they need to be here for this situation.
Looks like it's just going to be Winthrop kind of giving that away. There's be a little bit of a trade in the top side. Looks like Wilson, instead of going for the grubs, going to go for Ricky. And they'll find that kill easily, shutting him down up in the top side of the map. Only one grub actually taken by St. Clair in the meantime. So with their top laner down, they're going to have to go and retreat. And now maybe creating themselves a sticky situation around these Void Grubs. Maddie should be able to smite this one away, and now I think they have to get out.
I think if you are Winthrop, you just want to keep them trapped on this top side here, because Flocon made his way up. This is another wave that he'll just finally be able to catch, but it does mean that there will be a teleport advantage now here for Winthrop across the map. Denethor is able to catch another wave. Only 35 is also here to screen. Flocon finds a solo kill, so opens up some space on the side lane. How much more can St. Clair get here? You have an item advantage in mid on your bottom lane, so why not?
No.
Oh, no, Ricky! Ricky!
He just got snuck up upon by Denethor and Wilson between the two towers. That is such a feels bad man moment, as Ricky's having a tough one here. Denethor has had himself a good series. I think we can say that.
Yeah, he's been playing very, very well. Has gotten bailed out by his jungler, for being honest, especially in this game. But definitely game one, he was a lot more dominant up against Sama. They're going to see if they can make another dive here. Bottom lane coming in from the side of St. Clair. Sword is ulting and trying to fight Flocon again and almost gets solo killed.
Not in the focus right now, as you got to go look up at the top lane. A dive is imminent. Denethor, though, gets bubbled up, and Lig is here just in time. The shutdown goes towards Maddie, as Winthrop bite off a little bit more than they could chew up there.
Oh, and now there's no flashes as well from the two mid laners between these two. While this was happening, Sword teleported back down bottom lane, immediately used his ultimate, and these are going to be tools that are no longer available coming into this dragon fight in a minute and a half's time. So you're looking at this, you still have a pretty good item advantage coming on through. You have a Seraph that's about to be completed here for Flocon. I mean, Lig is dealing a plenty amount of damage with this Electrocute. Lucian. Should be exciting stuff coming in for St. Clair. This is even as the game is going to get for them.
It's a good opportunity now. You're getting Lig towards that power spike on the Lucian, as you said. Maddie getting stronger and stronger. He has 4 kills, by the way, in this game right now. But yeah, Ricky is still weak, and so that is where Winthrop will continue to try to target. As right now it's Ricky's job to try to just clear out the wave, but the tower is going to go down in the meantime. And now Sword sets up a Sun Disc. Going to be very difficult for Ricky to get his way out of this one, as it will be Wilson picking up that kill and going on a killing spree.
So much focus coming in onto Ricky. I mean, he's getting more attention here, and he hasn't even completed his first item. This Aatrox is absolutely a black hole on the map right now for the team. So seems like the side of St. Clair are going to try to get something on the opposite, try to even out for their top laner.
All right, hey, this would be a solid trade. You lose your top laner on one side, you get the other top laner on the bot side. So it's going to be Flocon picking up that one. The mid jungle here for St. Clair really has opened up the map a little bit for them and kept them in this game.
And instead of prioritizing another wave on bottom lane, it seems like they instead wanted to try to link up with their AD carry and support duo so that they can get them ready for this dragon. I like this coming in from St. Clair, escorting the mid and jungle, making sure that you can make this bridge and then play high on mid. We already saw that Lig and Miracle were playing pretty far up in the lane, wanting to contest. But kind of just going only for the blue buff now. Flocon will be able to teleport if he is needed near this play. Ricky has already preemptively made the shuffle over. Denethor teleporting for this top wave. So St. Clair need to be very quick to action. They need to find something. Otherwise, they are losing gold on the map for this play.
Yeah, just pull the dragon at this point. You know, you already have seen the teleport burn for Denethor. He will not be able to join this play. So getting yourself that second dragon of the game prevents from Winthrop having a soul win condition until very, very later on. And so That's a good situation right now. For the Saints, they have at least something that they're playing for across the map.
Okay. Denethor will be able to at least grab another turret here as bottom lane is in
no.
tow.
Ricky was sent to potentially the slaughter in 1v3, but this time he got some reinforcements, but he still will go down. Maddie's a flash away. Wilson goes straight into Maddie's arms, and he picks up the kill. Flocon, Weaver's walls in, but he might have gone a little bit too far forward here. Lig a little bit far away, finally dashing over the wall, and now Miracle is going to be the target. Mobility has the ulti unlocked for a little bit longer. But it will be Winthrop now backing on out. It's a 2-for-1 in their favor. They get 2 turrets as well, but they might lose Sword. He dashes in, he shuffles Lig in, and will save the fight for his team. Denethor picks up 2 more. It's an ace for the Eagles.
And Winthrop stand tall with their solo laners coming up clutch yet again. Denethor in this fight being a monster to deal with, and that is almost every summoner spell from St. Clair gone in an instant, alongside getting them multiple turrets here. Winthrop look untouchable in this second game. It was getting even for a little bit there, but have now exploded to a 5,500 gold lead. I'll be honest here, Grapes. I feel like we're watching Boys in the Hood, because I'm just seeing Ricky get taken down multiple times here.
Oh man, that's the poor guy. 1 and 6 now.
He's getting focused
on the Aatrox. Yeah, it's not. Hey, Winthrop have established that they can play through the top lane and have it work out, and that is what has worked for them here so far in this series. Denethor 6 kills now in this game. Winthrop 5,000 gold in the advantage, and they're going to continue to stack upon that lead as Ricky feels a little homeless right now. Not gonna lie. He can't even walk up to the wave because Denethor is here, and Wilson's gonna be able to pick up the Rift Herald.
And he's like, can I take one of my junglers' camps? And Maddie's like, dog, if you take this away from me, I'm not gonna have Titanic Hydra. You are, unfortunately, you are 2,100 HP for us. That's all you are. You will tank 2,000 damage, and that's as good as it's gonna get for the time being. They're trying to find 35.
Flocon comes in with the Weaver's Wall. This is going to be a nice pick here for St. Clair as Wilson will drop. Maddie gets another one, and they're going to probably pick up this tier 1 in the mid lane. The response on the other side for Winthrop, though, is Denethor's continued to split push, and will have a lot of time on that tier 3 turret up at the top lane.
Ended up not investing too much on the side of St. Clair. Losing their bottom or their top lane inhibitor turret is not great, but being able to trade that for mid tier 1, I think you have to be able to take these kinds of victories here. Denethor has to be figuring out that somebody is showing, with some of the members recalling. We'll also be able to spot Maddie on his blue buff. So, not feeling too bad. Good quick play coming in from the side of St. Clair, and also being able to stop this Rift Herald being summoned by the side of Winthrop.
That's a little steal there from Maddie, as Denethor not able to get that Gromp that he worked so hard for. We're getting close to the 20-minute mark of this game. Waiting to see what St. Clair still have left in him. They're down 4,000 gold. Mobility now has 2 items, so he's starting to become online here as is Zeri. Looking tough. Gotta keep looking for plays. Gotta keep their foot on the gas. They want to have a chance to even up this series. Because otherwise, scaling's gonna come through for Winthrop, and so that's what they're gonna try to do up here.
Oh, and now as Here's gonna get so much gold, can just stay on the side lane if he really wants to.
Yeah, Maddie picked up a kill onto only 35 on the bottom side of things and forced mobility out of the mid lane. So when we were potentially trying to set up that dive, another play was being made on the other side of the map here for St. Clair. They pick up another pick. Denethor did a really nice job, though, clearing that wave out, and St. Clair is spending a lot of time up here.
They are spending a ton of resources, and even in the bottom lane, I mean, Flocon teleported down to try to grab this. St. Clair putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that they get gold now. Miracle is separated from the rest of his team. Good cancel.
Oh, they're going to go for Denethor. He doesn't have that ultimate, and so Ricky will finally get on the board with a well-deserved shutdown. And so St. Clair just get a couple of kills in a row right back. They get this top lane tower. They're looking for Wilson.
Get more.
He jumps away, but Ricky will follow with the flash Q3. Mobility barely dodges away from that Aqua Prison, and now he's going to have to do a lot to try to win this fight right back. Sword teleporting in to make it a bit of an even play, but Maddie's going to knock him up and run right back on out of there. What a really big turnaround for St. Clair College. Flocon could look for something. Only 35. Where are we? Why are we there? Ricky goes on a killing spree. He picks up 3 in a row. St. Clair are right back into game number 2.
Only 35 is just maybe in real time exploring Rock Hill at the same time. He gets caught before we make this play.
Oh,
We're
he
going to get
made a rock,
teleport
all
coming
right.
in from Denethor. Okay, Ricky's probably the one that dies here, but still, as St. Clair, you're not too upset about the game right now. You just got multiple kills. You're able to stop the Rift Herald. It's a kill going over to Sword, but you've now, I think, evened up this game a lot here for St. Clair and given yourselves a spot back into this game.
There's now no Dominus, no Emperor's Divide. That Lightning Crash probably going to come up a little bit sooner rather than later, but that means that Matty is able to run straight back from his reset and pick up Soul Point for St. Clair as well. So even though Winthrop are up about 5,000 gold a little bit earlier on in this one, they're not completely secured with a Game 2 victory yet. St. Clair have done a lot of good things to answer back. The response will be the Otacon. However, League and Flowcon doing a ton of pokes. Sword and Mobility already have HP. The Otacon will surely go over, but what will happen to the Blood Petals and what will happen to the fight afterwards? Culling comes out. It's still 5 members strong for Winthrop, but their health bars are really, really low at this point. A teleport comes in. Ricky looking to join the fight. Weaver's Wall comes out and separates the team. A huge tidal wave, and Ricky gets polymorphed at just the perfect time. What a play from only 35. It's going to save the game for the Golden Eagles. They will not lose a single man. Only 35, the MVP, picks up 2 big polymorphs and a clean ace for Winthrop.
Just looking at that fight, I loved what we got from the jungle in mid here of Winthrop support. Obviously, we were looking at the Lulu, the polymorph coming in for the draft was going to have such a big influence, but I just get to see Wilson on this Jax. Take a look at in this replay. Getting some good damage, getting over the wall and losing vision was a big deal breaker here. And this wall from Flowcon, I think, just puts him right in the middle of too many members.
Oh.
I mean, Sword is just free firing. Matty flashes over this wall. This should have just been him giving up the rest of this play. Lig, I feel like, was just barely, maybe 50 to 100 range off of absolutely dominating that fight. Falls up short, and now Winthrop finally gained back the lead, 7,000, but St. Clair are on Infernal Soul Point.
Oh, gotta keep looking for something as the scaling is starting to come through for Winthrop, so St. Clair need to keep looking for plays, keep looking for fights. Again, we mentioned that polymorph. If Ricky's able to take down Denethor first, that gets him a reset, that really, I think, turns the fight in favor of St. Clair, but that was not able to happen as Denethor was able to live through the entire thing. And so everybody on St. Clair just dropped one after the other, despite the major HP advantages that they had in that 5v5. And now things are looking a little bit hard for them once again. 8,000 is now the gold lead. We're looking at 2 items on Lig compared to almost 3 on Mobility. And that's not a good place where you want these AD carries to be right now.
We're only 24 and a half minutes into this game, right? And we're just looking at it from Winthrop's perspective. 2 items on our Azir. We already have 3 items completed for our Renekton, almost level 16 here in the game. I mean, you're just going to rip open this objective. Baron spawning in 10 seconds, and St. Clair are nowhere near in the area and have so many of their summoner spells gone. I mean, no one has flash from the side of St. Clair, so Sword can find another massive sweep. Denethor can just play flank and get into this backline, and then what are St. Clair to do except lose the fight?
I mean, they got to try to fight at this point. Otherwise, the Baron is just going to go over for free. Matty and the rest of the squad very worried about face checking right now, and they should be, because right now Winthrop are stacked as 5 and they're still looking to make a play. Here comes Sword.
Sword!
The Emperor's Divide finds 2. The Shurima Shuffle will take down Miracle, and Sword will go golden to keep himself alive for a little bit longer. Will finally get shut down by Lig, who's still full HP in the backline, but in comes Denethor, looking to make that backline a front line. Ricky trying to save his AD carry, but he won't be able to do so for long. Denethor picks up the stun. It's another ace picked up for the Golden Eagles as they're looking to go up 2-0 in this best-of-5 series.
That's a salute, man. I have to give it up to Sword for that play. Sacrifices his life to open up that game and potentially blow up the Nexus here for St. Clair. 10,000 gold, 26 minutes. Winthrop make it look easy in this game, too.
It's like the Eagles starting to find a momentum shift here. Mobility here as their full roster finally unlocked against St. Clair College, and they will take a commanding 2-0 lead over the St. Clair Saints.
Sword flying forward opens up that play. We take a look at our stats here. I mean, 27-17. You would think that this game was a little closer, but we just saw what was happening in game. Their bottom lane from St. Clair just haven't been able to find the right pieces. I think focusing Flocon on early was a very big boon for them already. St. Clair back to the drawing board now with their backs up against the wall. Elimination on the line here.
Yeah, that's not something we were expecting to say this early on. I think we're thinking that this could have been a closer series between St. Clair and Winthrop. Again, you know, the two teams that were in the top 6 of the seeding going into the tournament this year. However, you know, St. Clair have suffered a reverse sweep against Winthrop and here against Fisher in the upper bracket. Could that happen again? But this time they being the ones to take advantage of it. It would be a fun story to wrap things up, but right now, St. Clair look like they are truly struggling and looking for any sort of answer against this Winthrop team, who now has mobility slotted into their starting 5.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a much closer matchup, right? This is literally our 5th and our 6th seed, and to go out in 3-0, I think for the side of St. Clair, a very big disappointment. I know with talking with some of the St. Clair boys yesterday, their expectation was, hey, we can make top 8. I think if they were making top 6, they felt like this was going to be like a very good tournament for them, but they've had really tough matchups, and especially having to immediately make a bounce back less than 12 hours later, always a tough thing to come in through series. So if there's anything left in the tank over there for the Saints, they got to get into it now, because every single map from here on out is a do or die situation.
We'll see if they can do it. There's going to be a reverse sweep to keep their CLOL dreams alive, to avoid falling out in just the top 12. And for Winthrop, they're just one map away from wrapping up a chaotic weekend of League of Legends for them and potentially going on that big lower bracket run. We'll see if St. Clair have any response once we return from this short break. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2025 College League of Legends Championships. We have game number 3 about to begin between Winthrop University and St. Clair College, and Winthrop off to an early 2-0 lead. St. Clair need to pull off what happened to them a year ago in order to keep their dreams alive and move on to top 8.
They've got to do basically what is thought to be the unthinkable right now, right? Like, they have to make a climb. They're now subbing Sama back into the top lane, so hopefully able to change up something there. But from what we've seen today and from their series last night, I think is a massive uphill climb coming in for the Saints in this matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, especially because now they have lost to both Winthrop with Artemis and Winthrop with Mobility, and both of them, of course, looking very, very strong. But I want to give some credit to the top side of the map here. Wilson and Denethor really playing well against the Saints so far, as it looks like no matter what top laner has come in for the side of St. Clair, has not resulted in the best outcomes. So we will see if that becomes a change here, as again, reverse sweep going to have to be necessary, as you know, it's going to take a lot. St. Clair going to have to dig down if they want to come back and you know, keep their CLOL dreams alive.
And even in some of these games, it's not like Winthrop are playing perfect League of Legends from minute one. We've seen some of these missteps, but it always feels like St. Clair, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They make a good play, and then they lose something on the opposite side, or they overstep and end up losing a lot more for it. So I want to be able to see St. Clair, someone on this team. I'm really hoping, obviously, Miracle is someone that has to take up the leadership. I'm hoping that Maddie can bring in a lot of that veteran leadership to say, look, guys, we can back off. We don't need to overextend. We're here in game number 3 draft. Bands looking very similar, although we have a couple of champions that have started to clear the table here for the side of St. Clair.
Yes, it's been a very similar draft, all things considered. Also interesting to see that St. Clair seemed to be opting back towards red side for this one after dropping game number 2. So trying to maybe prioritize that last pick. We'll see if it goes towards somebody like Sama, who again is subbing back in here for what could be the last game of the 2025 season for the St. Clair Saints. Or on the other side, you know, that Nefiri still not being banned away. Been a big, interesting topic to see if that's going to continue to be kind of let through the draft. We've seen Wilson play this pick, you know, I think in the NACL, so I'm a little bit surprised to see it not pop up.
Yeah, feels a bit weird. Obviously, here in Collegiate, you know, champion pools are a little tighter. We'll see what this Lucian priority is going to look like, as this has been the first pick for the past 2 games. It's going to be going over to Mobility and only 35. Makes sense, especially when we talk about how Mobility, typically when we talk about him, he's like this really great hyper carry a lot of times, but it feels like he's like a hyper carry player with the body or like the soul of a really aggressive Draven player. Like, he wants to be the guy that stomps you in lane, wins everything, but going to take the Lucian and maybe go for a little bit more of a lane dominant strategy.
It looks like St. Clair want to match fire with fire, though, as League is going to pick up a Callista pick that has done very well for St. Clair throughout the 2025 season. We'll see what it gets matched up alongside. We've seen things like the Nico or the Nautilus or the, you know, other picks like that, even the Renata come up in. And we're going to full comfort here in game number 3. We're already at match point. Maddie's going to lock in the Lilia this time, so he'll be opened up to do a little bit more on the map.
He knows. He's like, if this is our last game of the year, I want to do it in my way. I want to win on my terms here, or lose on my terms if that ends up being the case. So Lilia, a very iconic pick. Here now with the Callista already chosen for St. Clair. Gonna have to pick a pretty interesting bottom lane, as now you're going to be playing up against what looks to be a Lucian Melio. So early game prowess still down there, so that's early priority coming in from the bottom lane. This 2v2 can also be played in mid, so if this is the Electrocute variant, I think this is so tough for Callista to fight all-ins.
Yeah, I mean, that's, whoa! What? I was about to try to talk about the bot lane matchup, but I think we got to talk about this Rengar that's coming in potentially for Wilson in the jungle. This is not the first person in CLOL that I would have expected to see this pick from. I would immediately turn my eyes towards Evan Lai on San Jose State, but instead it's going to be going to Winthrop this time.
I was gonna say he's got right now. What's happening in the Winthrop room is everybody else is in a Discord call except for Wilson. Wilson is currently getting piped information from Munchie from UTM and San Jose.
Yeah,
They got
Munchie
Evan
too.
Lai on both ends. He's getting all the tips to download from our two Rengar players here. I mean, it's good in terms of the matchup. Once especially we hit level 6, Lilia becomes a champion that is really reliant on resources. So I want to see Winthrop continue to draft these lanes that are going to be able to grab priority as well as being able to fight with this Rengar. So already Winthrop trying to put some flourishes here in game number 3 on their win.
Hey, advancing with a Rengar pick in Game 3 would certainly be an exclamation mark to what has already been a great series for the Golden Eagles in their last day of what has already been a gauntlet of a entire week for them. So maybe getting a Rengar game for Wilson, it'll put him on a bit of a happier mental state going into, of course, what could be some of the most important games here for Winthrop, both at the back end of the NACL season, as well as here, of course, most notably, in the CLOL Championships, where they'll have an opportunity to lock up a top 4 with 2 more best-of-5 wins, if they are, of course, able to take care of St. Clair.
So I'm taking a look at this. Last time we got a Rengar from Wilson, it was 2023 in ACL Fall.
Wow.
Ended up playing it against Iridescent Moon, playing it against a player called Still Learning. All right, cool. Good job. We got a Rise coming in, so we got double AP in the jungle and mid, but allowing for Flocon to have a little bit more control throughout the mid lane. Gives him some side laning prop. We're just getting straight up counter picks now. They're just going on a little Linux from like 2017, 2014. They're like, Rise counter pick, Lilia counter pick. All right, cool. Just going to take what's up in top 3.
To be fair, the early game laning phase has been where the game's been broken open for Winthrop in both matches, right? So if you can really just hunker down and do well early on, maybe that's what's going to do it for you. It's going to be the Mbessa locked in here. Maybe a Scion to finish things off here for Sama would be fine. You can go even with the Mbessa. You could do well against something like the Lucian with not a lot of armor shred unless we get really late into this game. I think some extra frontline for St. Clair would work nicely here.
Oh, yeah.
It's already banned away. What am I saying?
The Nautilus, I think, works. I was going to say, the Nautilus is great for being able to lock down some of these champions. Great, so I'm going to be honest. It's been a while since I've gone to talk about any kind of Malzahar tech. It's been even longer since I've been able to talk about some Rengar. So we are in for a treat here. I think when you look at what Winthrop have, they're pretty squishy, especially when you look at their team. They're going to be looking for dive. They're going to be looking for all-in. If St. Clair can hold their own, you've got a Rise. You've got a Renekton that can do a little bit of work here. I think with Nautilus, there's some angles. But we've seen early game has not been the win condition for St. Clair. So Winthrop, I think, are definitely styling on their opponents and trying to get that little extra spice in the end of this game.
Yeah, and if not, hey, there's still 2 more games you can play to handle a win. So this is the classic Game 3. We're gonna play some unique stuff, try it out. Hey, what if the Rengar looks awesome and you gotta ban it away from Winthrop the rest of the series? The rest of their CLOL run. That could definitely be a big advantage for them moving forward. If of course, this pick ends up working out. But already, it's been a very chaotic day in the College League of Legends ecosystem. If we have some time before the game starts to pull up the lower bracket again, just to take a look at where we fully are at. Because right now, across some of the other streams, there's some wild things that are happening. Currently, most importantly, down the bottom of your screen, Illinois State University are currently down 0-2 to the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy. The UHSP Eutectics, by the way, who lost 6 games in a row to ISU in the regular season, now have match point up against the Redbirds.
It's insane. I mean, this is a North versus North conference fight, so we will be losing one of the strongest conference, at least one of their seeds, and having the Eutectics as the 19th seed come in. I mean, their battle throughout the bracket has not been all that, in terms of seeding wise, has not been that incredible. But beating ISU, like you just said, going down 0-6 in the regular season, potentially now on the verge of 3-0ing them, and we're just talking about it, but by themselves, it's the 7th versus the 19th. Massive upset, I think, coming in if they're able to close out that series. ISU really gonna have to dig deep in the same way that we have here for St. Clair and. It looks like for the other side, though, St. Thomas is taking care of business versus Purdue Northwest. So there is some normalcy going on in most of our bracket here.
Just a little bit, and as the other matchup is Northwood versus Weber State, the winner of that one will play the winner of the one that we are seeing on our stream in Winthrop versus St. Clair Saints. That will be happening later on in the week as it's been rescheduled. But again, back to the Eutectics. They had a bit of a stumbling journey throughout CLOL 2025. There were times where they definitely looked like a top 16 team, but there were other times, specifically right before the championship started, where they lost to Weber State in the NECC Grand Finals, and then they lost to ISU 3-0 in the lower finals of North. So back-to-back losses like that against teams that were considered maybe not as good as them, or maybe games that maybe the UHSP wanted to punch up against in, was a little bit disappointing. I think that's why they were led into a bit of a lower seed than maybe they could have been earlier on in the year. But what a ride it would be to take down ISU, to finally conquer those demons. And then after that, I mean, if you beat ISU here, like, there is no opportunity, there's no limit as to like how far this team could go. Like, UHSP could win it all at this point. Who knows?
Hey. Maryville's still playing in this tournament, even if they have some subs. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. They're in the lower bracket for a reason, okay? They're making a run. ISU, I'm glad that they're, kind of getting handled there. Maybe they can make a comeback. We'll have to see again. That series is going to be going on concurrently, and they should be on their way to game number 3. But we started got a series here. It's not as done and dusted, but Winthrop definitely making it look pretty one-sided. The storyline for all of CLOL right now, I think when we look across the board, is how strong really is the NECC. Because they came in with almost as many seeds as some of our super conferences, like the North, like the East, and the South. But they have the most amount of teams now tied with the North. North, in particular, has always, I think, been carried by a few of their teams, Maryville University in particular. And NECC, I think, across the board, when we talk about not only here in Collegiate, but also in NACL, has a lot of representation in terms of their players and the rosters that we see from them. So it's about how far is the ceiling, or how high is the ceiling, and we also haven't really seen the NECC, I think, been able to clutch up, especially like that Old Miss roster in terms of hype, hasn't really been able to deliver in terms of expectations, especially here at the Collegiate Championship. And Fisher and Winthrop are both trying to break the mold and show that it's not just Ole Miss in this conference.
Yeah, even last year, which was the most hype season of the NECC to date, the top 4 were 3 teams from the North and then UST from the South. Obviously now Northwood has moved over to the NECC, but now definitely an opportunity for them to bounce back here, as they're going to start things off early as we get the Welcome to America special from Miracle on the Nautilus. That forces Wilson's flash as the Rengar down a summoner spell early on.
Guys, why are we even bothering to make the same play that we did last time? Like, they have a Nautilus. I look at our team. We're playing Rengar. We're playing Malzahar. There's just never a situation where, at least for level 1 sakes, that we really want to try to match early. So Wilson losing his flash, not all that important, but, a good find coming in from St. Clair. And I'm glad that they're at least showing a little bit of activity early on.
That's one small win. They're going to need a lot more to try to claw and scratch their way back into this one, make it more of a competitive series, because right now it's been truly dominated here by our number 3 seed from the NECC. We get junglers starting on opposite sides of the map. Maddie going for that traditional Raptor start, and then of course going to go for that full clear after that. We also see down in the bottom lane, Hail of Blades compared to the Electrocute here for Lig and Mobility. That means that both of these bot lanes really want to get off firing, especially here on these first couple of waves.
Okay, I wonder if this is also just going to be a lethality Callista game. I think if there was ever a time for me to see this abomination of a champion, probably is going to be here, right? Just the ability to play a little bit of a different kind of Callista where you're super focused on getting short-turn trades, especially with Hail of Blades, get access to the, like Edge of Night, as well as having stuff like the Opportunity. So could be an option. We'll see how that ends up developing. We talked about our junglers for a little bit there, but they are heading to opposite sides of the map. Maddie has been someone that has been a little bit more Sama?
Oh no. Sama using that Q to heal up, but is able to get that wave crashed a little bit, but Denethor doing a nice job to freeze it up. So is Mobility and only 35. So both the side lanes right now, not in great places for St. Clair.
You're so happy as Sama that he has at least another 4 seconds on cooldown there, because if Denethor had access to another ability, that's potentially at least a summoner spell going down in favor of Winthrop. as he's going to teleport back. He's going to be able to help crash that wave once he is back in the lane. And for the time being, still happy about this. I mean, Maddie is farming up St. Clair. You know, minor losses in some of these, but you're able to still grab yourself an advantage in some of these lanes. And I'm still looking at Maddie right now on this Lily. He has to be the guy that iconic champion pick for him. You have a pretty low range composition from Winthrop, but high amount of DPS, so he has to play this game very, very carefully.
Yeah, when he was back on those Supernova rosters in 2021, going through Challengers Uprising, going through Risen, making Proving Grounds, it was on this Lilia pick that, you know, he was really able to, you know, shine on you know, this in the jungle. So seeing him on it again, definitely nostalgic. This is also a champion that is pretty prevalent in the meta and can do well. Full clearing very efficiently. You can see already completing that Scuttle Crab on the bottom side. As both junglers kind of just pretty freely going about their business here. Right now, it ends up with Maddie on the bot side, as they might try to catch out Mobility coming back from base a little bit. Yeah, here they go. Here comes the watch out. Mobility wants to flash away, but there comes already the hook from Miracle. Mobility's very low, but only 35. Gonna try to keep him alive. 200 HP right now. No summoner spells available here from Mobility. Miracle flashes forward, picks up first blood for the Saints. The Eep is canceled here by only 35, but they're still waiting for that wave to crash in. Lig is hunting, trying to get that wave in, but now Wilson's arrived, picks up Maddie. We'll have Miracle next up, and Winthrop will answer right back.
And that is 2 kills going over to the Rengar. Massive amounts of gold now for the Hunter. As Wilson on this Rengar, unique champion coming on through. He's only played it once in his whole career. Now we get to see it a second time, and he's getting force-fed some kills coming in from St. Clair as they try to cut off Mobility. It's a good dodge, and I think, you know, some good resources being allocated towards this Callista, but that's the last person that you wanted to see come out and grab those kills. So good job from only 35. I think his Melio play has really been impressive so far, already 5 minutes in. So, Grapes, I know you were talking about that Proving Grounds split where we got to see a lot of Maddie. You know the first thing I think about in 2021? We saw our first Sejuani pentakill from our mouth.
Was that
that was the very first series to open up Proving Grounds, is watching Team Liquid Academy get a pentakill.
That was against
versus
Maddie, right?
Supernova.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do remember that. Oh, what a shame. As now Maddie looking for some more plays in the brush camps, as he is going to pick up Wilson finally, but Sword will flash forward, secure the piece of warfare, but now Maddie will get himself a double kill as the Lilia is fully online.
And gets this whole mid-wave. He has a bunch of camps he can go for. I mean, can finish off on his bottom side camps and move back up, or he can try to contest for this dragon. This Lilia is starting to pick up a little bit of pace here. Denethor just solo killed Sama, so again, it always feels 1 step forward, 2 steps back here with St. Clair. They get an advantage in mid, but still losing the bottom side matchup, and top lane is going to continue to be an issue for this roster.
I think that was underneath Denethor's turret, if I was looking at it correctly, that Sama just tried to overextend, try to flash in, pick up a solo kill, so a little bit of over-ambition right there. As you see Sama, he's really trying to play for lane. You see he's opted for the press the attack instead of the conquer. That normally means you're trying to pick up a solo kill early.
Also just gives him a bit more all-in potential, whether it's here in the lane or later. I think recognizing that when St. Clair are going to be team fighting, it's probably going to be onto a single target, so having that alongside things like the Halo Blades Callista makes this a little bit easier for them to find that first kill in a fight. Seeing the start of the dragon here for St. Clair. Instead, Rengar is going to be clearing towards his top side. So objectives at least being split here by both teams, but it is, remember, that the feats of warfare in particular going over to Winthrop early. So pretty close to them being able to pick up a few more objectives and then getting themselves the feats of strength.
Yeah, well, St. Clair answered back nicely by picking up that first Ocean Dragon of the game. As now Flocon could be targeted just a little bit here. As looks like as we head back here to the general state of things on the map, Winthrop have that slight advantage, as you say, but it's gonna really be about these junglers. Oh, Sama dies again. That's not good.
Nope. All I needed to see was Rengar heading up towards top side and Renekton started leaning into the river. That's not the point you want to see there. So another kill also means that if they need to, you already see it. Sword gets pushed in mid.
Yeah, he's invading right now,
walking on over Realm Warp from Flocon.
Tried to push Wilson away from the red buff. Maddie full HP, but Sword is as well. And it will be a numbers advantage, at least for a little bit right now for Winthrop. It's going to be Wilson to pick up the red buff, but the sleep lands on it too. Public execution on the Flocon. He's in a lot of trouble, but they pick up the kill onto Wilson first. The nether grabs onto Maddie, but it's not nearly enough to take the Lilia down. It is a 2-for-2 overall, but St. Clair are feeling happy about that one. 2-for-1, I should say, unless you count Sama, as now on the bottom side is Ligan Miracle trying to find a trade, but it will be only 35 to pick up the kill on the Nautilus.
Oh no, and Lig doesn't have enough damage here. Could even potentially get walked down by only 35. St. Clair, they're able to trade on the opposite side. Lilia still picking up more of these kills.
The campfire, Lig, he pops the barrier, goes to the floor.
Oh!
Now play to get one back on mobility, but only 35. Gets another kill, then dances on his grave. Oh my goodness, what a game.
Only 35 has been emoting all series long, so I respect him for having the consistency to do it here. Already has a Echoes of Helia so early on, and same thing for his jungler, finishing the Yomus at 9 minutes. But I'm looking over at St. Clair. I think the gold is in the right spots right now. Not a massive lead for Winthrop.
Okay, they're going for Sword.
Good.
No flash,
Good
no
find.
ulti, so that's going to be a pretty easy kill. Nice find there from Maddie and Miracle. But say Maddie looking very comfortable on this Lilia pick.
He's getting a lot of assistance, and even with these invades, they're not going exactly as planned here for Winthrop. And even the kills, yes, it is on to Denethor with a lot of these solo kills, but, this is right.
Only 35.
Okay.
Oh, he's going to actually catch out Miracle here as Wilson and Mobility there to collect him. And where did Maddie go? I thought he was going to be joining that fight, but it's just way too late. It's now Lig going to potentially be targeted on this tower unless Maddie's here in time.
Flocon with
on
the
hunt,
ultimate
already
here.
procced
Oh, he doesn't
here.
actually...
Okay, looks like he's okay.
Okay, never mind. I
As
thought
Wilson
Flocon was going
popped
to be able to
the ulti.
realm warp, but
He's
Oh,
still
no.
hunting.
Oh,
He's still
no.
looking maybe for someone. I don't think
this
he's
is
going to
fake.
find anyone.
This is so fake. They saw him on the control ward. Yeah, I was going to say, no way. So, ends up falling. They're not going to be able to do all that much. Just is going to be Miracle by himself. Not all that bad for St. Clair, as only 35 playing very far up, playing very aggressive just to make sure that he can grant vision to him and his team. And Winthrop will just take that single kill, make sure that Wilson is able to clear the rest of his topside camps here, which is very important for these two junglers. I think the fact that Maddie is only ahead because he has all of these kills is, I think, a fine sign at the times if you're St. Clair.
Yeah, you know, nice shout out to Wilson for being able to farm himself as well. Has the Yomu's first item compared to the Leandries, and they're the first champions really across the map to fully come online here, as Wilson's going to pick up the remainder of these grubs. Don't think that Maddie's really in a good position to try to contest these, especially because Denethor is so pushed far forward. So instead, they're going to look for the kill onto the Ambessa. Nice splash stun forward from Sama as he finally will get his revenge.
That'll be the shutdown, but I think this is still worth here for the side of Winthrop. They're able to grab themselves plates. If they want, it looks like they're going to be shifting over some of these lane assignments. I think Mobility's probably going to go for one more wave. I thought they would try to at least maybe swap into the Ambessa going into a side lane. Maybe a little bit afraid of playing into the Nautilus. Seems like with 30 seconds on the clock, Winthrop are going to try and put themselves in position to play for this dragon. I just don't know if I like this play. I think I prefer to see them hit on turrets. You have 6 grubs. You still have 3 minutes before the plates fall. Getting gold right now is really going to make this game pretty difficult for St. Clair, as they want to spike on 1 and 2 items. But Winthrop are kind of in the same boat, especially when we talk about our 2 mid laners here. And Denethor is really strong with having this Eclipse already.
Yeah, you already saw he's been able to pick up a couple of solo kills, and as well as a assisted kill with Wilson onto Sama. So that has helped Denethor out, who has had himself again a very impressive series overall. For Winthrop, again, they're playing this kind of unorthodox composition. And now we'll see just what they can do with it now that they're facing a little bit of adversity. Sure, they, I think, still have gold in the right places, but they are now even at this point in the game. As St. Clair is starting up this Chemtech Dragon, only 35, forced to flash out as Flocon came in and made sure that Summoner Spell was burned.
They're moving everybody over. They're going to fight after this play. They've already having Bessa was supposed to take over mid. Malzahar's going to go for
They're
this.
grouping up. Yeah, Wilson not able to find much, but here comes another hook from Miracle. He might be a little bit too far forward, but we'll get Fates called out to safety. So Winthrop send 4 to the pit, but are unable to find anything with a Dragon going over to the Saints.
Still have to be very careful. If they wanted, they can continue for this invade. They do still have the Malzahar ultimate. Good timer there from Winthrop, obviously. Still not winning out on the Dragon, and losing the flash off of only 35 definitely sucks, but if you're Winthrop, that was an appropriate timer for you to be able to find here, as you already had push in mid. Good job from Denethor also to cover the mid wave while that was happening. He went back towards top, so not going to be missing out on too much gold. St. Clair are stacking up these Dragons, so we'll see if they're going to be able to get themselves to Soul Point, as it is a Hextech Soul, something we saw a lot of last night versus Fisher. Hoping they can try to lean on this, and I mean, you've got this Rod of Ages already complete. Oh no.
It's a nice flash from Maddie to try to stay alive for a little bit longer. Gonna pop the Lilting Lullaby. Could maybe find some sort of turn with Sama on the way, but is unable to do so. Here comes Flocon as well. Meanwhile, the 2v2 is going St. Clair's way down bottom, and now Flocon gonna be able to dish out some damage. Stun comes through. Denethor will drop. It's a 2-for-1 across the map for St. Clair, but Mobility will answer one right back as Sword teleported down to the bottom lane to find a kill back onto Lig.
And now we're seeing Wilson. He's using his ult to get out of position. Maybe he could have, was kind of cooking maybe something in mid lane, as a lot of summoner spells used from Winthrop, but ultimately they get so much control. They were able to at least see where some of Maddie's camps were, as well as get this Lilia behind, claim that shutdown, especially for Denethor, who I think has sacrificed a little bit of his lane now, not only covering in mid for that Dragon play beforehand, but even giving up his life just to make sure that Maddie gets taken. And, I mean, now we're 3 minutes before the Dragon, and you're looking at this from the side of Winthrop. They're going to be hoping to use a lot of their gold that they just got to hopefully muscle St. Clair out of position. If they really wanted to, they could play for the Rift Herald that's going to be spawning in a few minutes, and then you also have these 6 grubs. I think it perfectly moves into potentially a play around the Dragon in a few minutes.
Especially because you have this Lucian Milio who can generate so much pressure in the mid lane specifically. You can shove out really nicely, throw out that culling if anybody gets too close. There's a little bit of poke issued there by Maddie, but yeah, these neutral objectives going to be very big for the Golden Eagles if they want to try to extend what is already just a 1,000 gold lead, which is, I think, probably the smallest lead that they've had at this point in the game all series long, which is a good sign for St. Clair, but still Winthrop have that slight advantage, and they have the gold in the right places. A lot of opportunities to do stuff as, whoa, yeah, there's the power of that Cullen. We didn't even get to see what happened there to Lig, but he just goes down instantly in that mid lane.
Yep, welcome to Electrocute with Emilio. You are just going to one-shot someone, so they're going to use his mid-priority to make a play on bottom side. Good respect coming out from Flocon, recognizing that he cannot be on this wave by himself. And his jungle and supporter moving over towards the top side. So we got the individual solo laners showing a lot of respect. Denethor actually falling a little bit in the 1v1 as we saw Sama take him pretty low in HP. And so, seems like a trade of turrets. Gold being given over to this Malzahar while Sama tries to catch himself back up in this game. And even taking now the Herald started for St. Clair.
Surprised that that is what has happened after Lig died in the mid lane, but looks like actually St. Clair doing a good job of getting some stuff back here. They have the Dragon up in another minute, so they could potentially fight for that soul point if they want to. I will say now that Flocon has really come online a little bit. He has that Rod of Ages coming through. Like, I feel like now St. Clair might want to fight around some of these objectives and take advantage of some of their mid-game strengths themselves.
Seems like they're leaning towards it. Lig does have a full item. You have Denethor. Oh,
they go.
no.
Fates call forward. Miracle starting the engage off very early. Sama doesn't have dominance just yet, but it's still going to be enough to take down Wilson as Lig picks up that kill. Denethor next up. What a play from St. Clair to find 2 across the map.
How much more can they grab, though? Because it's going to be a focus on top lane wave, which isn't pushed out all that much. They're losing priority in mid, and you look on bottom side, Flocon is now trying to push on the bottom side of the map with no grubs here. If they're able to trade a turret, I think that Winthrop are not too unhappy. Obviously, falling down there and making the gold feel a little bit more even. Not what they would have planned for. And a good snap coming in from St. Clair. They use a lot of resources for that, though.
It's going to be traded for part of that bot lane turret going down, however, was not completed by Flocon as Sword came in with a teleport, and now that actually gives Winthrop a timer around the dragon. So that is what St. Clair sacrificed to make that play, but it was a very nice play that found themselves some gold on some priority targets.
Yeah, they were able to take down Wilson. Also, finding Denethor, I think, is fine. All of this gold going on the Lig is even greater. Being able to contest some of this camps, great for Maddie individually, but I'm looking at the map right now. When they're able to take this dragon, we talked about potentially Hextech Soul being important for St. Clair. I feel like the timing of that play maybe have shot them in the foot. Hopefully, if St. Clair are able to win this, this will just simply be water underneath the bridge, but maybe this is the moment in which they said, hey, that play in the short term felt nice, but not being able to get Dragon Soul and force a fight at 23 minutes might come back to hurt them.
Yeah, having Soul Point would be big. And if you were able to use those resources and get the dragon to find a couple of kills, it would have been better, obviously. But that's the power of the surprise, the element of surprise that Sama and Maddie had waiting in that bush to catch out Wilson early. That was certainly a large factor as to why that was able to even come into play here. It's now Flocon getting targeted here in the mid lane, or in the bot lane, as Sword takes him down alongside Wilson, but the trade could be big. The Rengar currently has a ticking onto him. There goes Miracle, sorry, using that summoner spell to pick the kill up onto Sword.
All right, so they end up trading 1-for-1. It's also the flash away from Sword, so not too mad about that trade.
Okay, mobility.
Potentially onto mobility. You do have this Melio, so it is so tough for a melee champion like Renekton to find much. Instead, they're just going to trade, look to continue to push, grab this top tier 1, seeing an all-in here from the side of St. Clair. So how much damage on mid can they actually get? They're going to use Rift Herald. They might be able to race them now.
It'll at least be both tier 1s falling. They're sending Flocon up to the top lane to try and defend it. I don't know how much he'll be able to do all by himself, as there are 3 members of the Golden Eagles there. But it's going to come at the cost of this mid lane tier 2, as St. Clair are going to pick that up with ease. We'll see what's up on the top side, though, now. It looks like Flocon is getting targeted on a dive. The Seraph Shield keeps him alive. Miracle here to join the party. The tower aggro has been pulled away from, but Denethor flashes forward and finishes it off onto the rise. Miracle the next target. It's a double kill in for mobility.
Lig is coming.
And Winthrop aren't done pushing just yet. However, here come the rest of St. Clair. Maddie and Sama are going to be there first. The target going to be mobility. He does not have that flash. He will get taken down by the Croc. It's actually Lig to finish off the kill, and the sleep lands on only 35. So St. Clair get 2 kills right back in what is a very even trade across the map.
Denethor immediately bails. He says, screw this, I'm out, guys. I'm not dealing with this. He leaves that lane. They try to put more pressure onto this bottom side. The solo lanes of Winthrop are going to be playing for this bottom tier 2. Decide against it with some of the recalls with Hextech portals allowed. Teleport coming in from Flocon. How long can they go for this flank here? They'll see him as he travels across the map.
Still has a Realm Warp as well. Fate's Call available from Lig. They're going to try to target out Wilson. Lig flashes in to try to just chase down the Rengar. He might be invisible, but when you're not in full vision, still can hit onto him. Looks like Wilson will be able to survive, but that's a big win here for St. Clair, unless they could get anything else on the other side of the map.
Dead.
Sword just dies bot lane, and now Lig trying to fight 1v2. It's already a 2-for-1. Now it's a 2-for-2 across the map, as mobility will answer back onto Lig. But now, will St. Clair want to start up this Otacon? I don't think they can, with 2 of their members down.
Oh no! So they extend out onto the rest of the play, and St. Clair are able to chase them out. But think about the summoner spells that they just lost. No flash or barrier on Lig. They're not going to even have the Nautilus ultimate. I mean, maybe it'll be up in time for this dragon, but it's not Soul Point. And if they lose this one, they still have 6 grubs coming in. If we take a look back at this bottom lane play, it's Sama getting canceled, or canceling the Malzahar ultimate. And then Rise just being able to bring in the rest of the squad from St. Clair. Good chase and a long extended play from Winthrop does get punished over time. So this game is as even as it's been all series long. St. Clair recognizing that this is potentially the last game that they play here at the CLOL Championship in 2025.
And they want to make sure that it's not. They live at least for 1 game longer. That's all you can hope for at this point. But Lig is in a lot of trouble here. Wilson jumps on top of the Fate Seal. The public execution from Denethor will seal the deal. Main carry for St. Clair College is now down, as the Dragon's up in 45. It looks like the Otacon will be the target here for the Golden Eagles.
Already Sword starting it up. Another objective here for Winthrop and St. Clair. what have we said has been the rule for this team? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They make a good play on the map. They make a good play around their jungle and trying to pick out Wilson. But unfortunately, too many mistakes and the timing of it all not really in their favor. It'll be the Otacon going over to the side of Winthrop. And maybe they're able to contest.
Oh, Sama's dead. He just gets nether grasped in by Sword. It's a 5v3, and St. Clair have no chance of winning this one. Flocon's dead already on the map, and now Maddie's forced to run for the hills. He goes underneath this tier 2, will finally get joined up by Link, who has respawned. But what a big turn of events here for Winthrop. In just a couple of short minutes, they have really expanded their gold lead and might be able to crack open the base.
6 grubs. Link is dead.
Link's dead again. Oh no. Now the inhibitor's going to be opened up. Mobility pops the culling. It's just Maddie and Miracle left alive right now on the map. So the bot lane inhibitor will fall. And you blink your eyes, Zulk. Winthrop once again back up 4,000 gold.
This game has not been cleaned by both of our teams. St. Clair have found ways to fight back, but when it comes down to it, I think that they're a little too sloppy. I feel like when we look at Winthrop, they have just been able to bounce back. They've been making sure that they're getting gold. Some of their plays haven't been great, but in terms of impact, Denethor has been such an amazing top laner in this series. Said, you can keep subbing out your 2 top laners. I'll gap them both. I don't even care the matchup. He has been so influential for this team, and I think one of the most amazing pickups coming out of that roster that we saw in 2021 for Winthrop when they did win the championship, it was who was going to be able to take over in favor of Mabud and, Saskio and the rest of those guys. Well, I mean, Denethor, I think, has really grown into his spot on the team.
Absolutely. Remember, this is a guy in 2022, just a rookie out of solo queue, who found his way on a tier 3 team. Now, potentially trying to lead his team to a victory here, as another really nice engage from him, going straight in with the public execution, but he might have gotten a little bit too far forward. So is Mobility, as the shutdown finds the way of Flocon. Sama is still alive, and St. Clair have breathed a little bit more life into this game. Link trying his best to jump on around, but Denethor will shut him down. The sleep's gonna come through. Can they find a kill? Sama forgets to get Sword, and it's just Denethor left against St. Clair. Maddie's gonna try to continue to run him down, but the Saints will find another fight.
Oh my god, and it comes off of an unlikely hero, Sama, on this Renekton. He's had such hard games playing yesterday against Yeo on Fisher College. I know yesterday we were talking about a lot of the posts that he made afterwards, having kind of feeling the pain of potentially kind of thinking that he lost his team that series versus Fisher. Now here in game number 3, makes a game-saving play that keeps them in this one. Sama, brother, no, I was just hyping you up! You can't get taken down in the solo here!
Oh, so that's another kill back. However, they were able to stall out the death timers with only 35 dying underneath the enemy tier 3 turret. And so it doesn't look like Winthrop are going to be able to do anything off of that one kill. So Sama able to save the game with that fight, then at least push the wave in to delay what could be a potential Baron here for Winthrop.
Our 2 top laners really battling it out here, and a tough game now ahead of St. Clair. Another dragon going over to the side of Winthrop means that a dragon soul is highly unlikely unless this game goes extra long. Another 3 minutes before that 5th Drake of the game spawns in, and Winthrop, they have 6 grubs, so it feels like every time they win, they get a little bit more from St. Clair. They're able to take more of these turrets, open up the base. Teleport coming in. Winthrop are going to try and call St. Clair over, and my eyes are going to fall towards Mobility. How much damage can he get on this Electrocute Lucian? How much poke are we going to be able to find? And now with Sword also having that Nether Grasp, almost level 16, a single target from St. Clair that steps a little too far forward can suddenly be taken out.
That's what's very powerful about this Winthrop comp still. Mobility here on the Lucian. He goes into culling, takes out half of Miracle's HP. Wilson gonna jump forward here on the hunt, and he'll find the kill as well. That's the support for St. Clair down, and now the rest of the Golden Eagles will march over to the Baron.
They're gonna move on over. Instead, they're gonna say, hey, let's prioritize mid-wave. You can kind of see there's a bit of a split call there. The solo lanes from Winthrop going
Mobility's
down towards the mid.
Damage.
Yeah, it looks like Wilson as well tried to take one more camp. I feel like this is a little greedy coming in from the side of Winthrop, but ultimately, going to at least put them in position. How are St. Clair going to be able to battle back? It'll be the Baron falling.
Nether Grasp. It comes in on the flow comp, but Sword might have gone too far to try to land that ulti. Sama dashing in with the Dominus in hand. It's still a 5v4 across the map. I don't think St. Clair want this anymore. The Cozy Campfire is getting mobility right back up to full HP. And now, here comes Zenithor. Lands the public execution, but he gets shut down by Lig. 1-for-1 so far. Lig, though, getting targeted here by Wilson. And he will drop to the might of mobility as the Betty Ready carry is coming to play in game number 3. Winthrop get 3. And now Miracle and Maddie will have to try to save the base, but they won't be able to do so. Wilson gets the kill, and that might just be the game and the series.
Baron, 6 grubs, mobility on this Lucian. He even rips apart Miracle. It's an ace coming in for Winthrop as a 3-0 here in the lower bracket.
On to the Nexus Towers they go. No reverse sweep for St. Clair this time around, as Winthrop will once again continue their march through the lower bracket of CLOL 2025. They will move on to top 8 and take down St. Clair.
A great series coming in from Winthrop, and finally a sigh of relief I think can be given to this team. They're done with their stretch of games. They no longer have to play a bunch of best-of-5s back-to-back. They have to travel in the middle of this. This was hell week coming in for Winthrop. I think if they were able to get over this, they're going to have a pretty smooth tournament after. Winner now goes on. Winthrop are going to be playing against the winner of Northwood versus Weber, which will happen obviously later on in the week. But finally, I think that these guys can take a break, pat themselves on their back. They've had really impressive series, obviously only falling to Maryville and in the collegiate space right now. I think you're fine if you're Winthrop. You're happy that this is finally done. You've done it. You've done the impossible.
And hey, it's been a kind of a, even before this week, it's been a tough go of things for Winthrop. You know, they were struggling early on in the NACL season. They lost 3-0 or 3-1 to Ole Miss after a 3-2 series that happened to them earlier in the winners semifinals. And so trying to bounce back from that. And after, again, losing to Western earlier on last week, just a lot of things kind of not going their way. And suddenly down here in the lower bracket, they were going up against this St. Clair team who looked so good against Fisher College for like a large portion of that series, and you think, oh no, is this the time that they could bow out, the earliest that they've ever bowed out in a CLOL national championship? But they were able to hold it down. They show why they've been able to win all those lands with this core of players throughout the years, and this could be it. I mean, it would be the longest lower bracket run, the longest bracket run in CLOL history if Winthrop are able to do this, losing the first round into winning all the remaining best of 5s. But when you take a look at the 5 players on this team, they certainly have the caliber and the skill level to do it, and now they just have to get it done one match at a time.
It's going to be tough still, right? Like, their opponents don't get any easier. The fact they're even in this lower bracket to begin with is kind of an indictment of, you know, some of that consistency that we have been saying has plagued Winthrop historically. But there's a reason why they're respected for such a long time. There's a reason why they came into the series as favorites despite all of these hiccups. Like you were just saying, the pedigree of this Winthrop roster has been shown to perform at least to a certain level. Now it's about how far can they go. They've now made it past another team. They've made as the 5th seed coming in, they've now beaten the 5th seed in St. Clair. How much more does this team have up against them? Because even going up against, assumingly, we take a look at, like, if we had the bracket, we have Northwood going up against them Nets. That's the 9th seed, so they have to play against the NECC again. That's one that they would probably feel very comfortable as an in-conference kind of meetup there. There's a lot to be going on, and you know, I said that the East was a one-conference region, or a one-team conference. They have St. Clair Saints, the 1st seed is out. It's only Western yet again. The folks at home, they're like, guys, we can just always rely on the Mustangs.
It's unlike last year. Last year, St. Clair finally broke that trend. They outpaced Western throughout CLOL 2024, but not this time around. As even though there's a lot of shenanigans going on with the Western squad, we don't know exactly what their schedule is going to look like going into that matchup against Ole Miss in the upper semifinals. But we do know is that they have currently outplaced St. Clair once again, despite what happened in the East Conference Finals. We have our MVP for the series overall, Alk. And it's Denethor up in the top lane here for Winthrop University. Obviously got a lot of help from his team overall throughout the 3 games, but when it mattered most, found big plays. That Mbessa in game number 3 doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Winthrop to carry them into that eventual game win.
He just played, I think, really consistently across the board. So I'm really happy to see Denethor, especially as someone that had had a lot of hype behind him playing in Tier 3 and Tier 2. So good to see that he is performing at the level that we expect for a player of his caliber, especially now coming into that 3-year stretch here on Winthrop. I feel like there's not much more to develop specifically with this roster. It's all about how far can we go? Can we use the experience of not being able to push for championships earlier on in our tenure? And hopefully now this is kind of the year for Winthrop. How far can they actually push?
Yeah, again, not what I was expecting, in terms of how they've looked going into the championship of like being ready for that run, but all of a sudden down in the lower bracket, hey, the momentum is now on their side. And speaking of momentum and speaking of winning games and being good, we got our MVP here for an interview. We got Denethor here to speak with us. Terrible transition, but Denethor, welcome into the show.
Hello.
Congratulations on the 3-0 win. How are you guys feeling after that one?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I think.
Are you back? Are you back
lot
at school
better
right
than-
now, or did you?
Yeah, we came home yesterday. Got home around 7. So it was a long
Damn.
drive. Had a lot of traffic, but we left at like 8. Got back at 7.
Damn. I wanted to ask, you guys are finally done with your insane 25-game stretch that you guys had, playing from last week and playing NACL and NACE and here. Is this like, are you guys finally like looking forward to at least a little bit of a break, or what's the plan for the boys?
I think I'm already ready to play more. All the matches in a row were really tiring, but after I got one night of sleep last night, I woke up and I felt rested for the first time in like 5 days, and I was looking forward to this match. I knew it was gonna be fun, and I'm ready to play more.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll serve you up some more best of fives. It's okay.
Yeah,
I
down
bet.
in the lower bracket, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to play a lot of best of fives, of course, starting next week, of course. Going up against St. Clair here. You guys played them at the LAN in Orlando just a couple of days before this best of 5 here today. You guys won that series, of course, and now you win this one. Was there anything you learned from how that matchup ended up going that you took into the game planning and the execution on the Rift today?
Not really. I kind of forgot about that match already because there were so many in between.
It's a lot of games.
And it was
Yeah.
really easy because they didn't even have their full roster. But
Yes, that's true.
today was about as easy. Maybe a little harder. But we
Okay.
did have coach game 1.
Denethor,
and
Oh, true. Oh, true. We gotta ask, how is it with playing with Artemis now in the lineup? And, he's played before with the boys, but what was it like now having to have him on the Lucian? What would you grade him on his performance today?
I think he did pretty well, honestly. I didn't expect him to do that well. But he kind of just listened to us and got carried. But he did take some notes from mobility. He went to my bot 2-2 that I already had and yoinked the gold for no reason. As
So you're
David
saying that's
does.
what mobility does
So,
to you too?
Yeah, it's a classic. Comes-
That's just AD carry behavior. I know that Artemis is
Yeah.
normally a support
Yeah.
player, but it looks like he really tried to take the mold of mobility.
He plays
for
some
this
AD.
game, so.
He plays AD.
He does? Okay.
Yeah.
So he knows. He knows.
I wouldn't want him anywhere else. That's all I'll say.
Maybe in the coach position. That might be a better spot for him.
Yeah.
Also, kind of wanted to ask about like your guys' run through the lower bracket. I know that loss versus Western kind of sucked, but how's it been? My headcanon was that you guys were just trying really hard not to get knocked out by Maryville again. You're just trying to dodge them in the bracket. So what's it been like having your one life already down here?
It kind of puts you on your toes a little bit. I think that's what we weren't doing in the first match. We weren't really. We kind of disrespected Western when we shouldn't have, and didn't come as prepared as we should have. But I think from now on, we'll always be ready to play.
Well, yeah, now you finally got that momentum kind of riding your way. You're winning best of 5 after best of 5. You're going to win 5 more, I think, is what's going to take in order to win another CLOL championship. But, thinking about what's ahead, you play the winner of Northwood versus Weber up next. And, hey, by the way, at that LAN, you guys took a game off of Maryville University at their full strength. So how are you guys feeling about what the lower bracket run could look like and, what a CLOL run, to the championship could look like?
I think take it one match at a time, but I do think we will be in Raleigh. I'm pretty certain. So take one game at a time, though.
Do you have any words for Northwood or Weber? Depending, do you care? or is it just
no,
another team, another
no.
day?
They'll,
All
We'll
right.
beat them either way. So
Hey,
got it.
Good to
you
know.
got
good
you
to
got
know.
Cozy up there for Northwood, who's someone I know you've played against quite a bit back over the years. So that should be a fun matchup if it ever ends up coming through. But Denethor, thank you so much for the interview. I want to leave the floor to you before we wrap up the show here today. Any final words, any messages to the fans or anybody out there?
Pilscar, he showed up to the LAN, drove 7 hours himself just to be there.
Yes.
It
Yep.
was good.
Shout out Pilscar.
And then my team for playing that many matches and still being here today, like all prepared. It was pretty good.
Great. Good to hear. Glad to
Right.
see you, and congrats again on getting MVP for this series. You performed really, really well today. So, get some more rest? Question mark, and then get ready to play a little bit more
Well,
League of
Or
Legends
just grind some
over
solo
the next
queue
couple
out. Why
days.
not?
I am ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, Denethor's ready. Winthrop is ready. Thank you so much, Denethor, for the interview. Best of luck through the rest of the lower bracket, as that's actually going to do it for our time here on the University Esports stream. Just the way the reschedulings had worked, we don't have a second series planned for you, but we do have an updated lower bracket for you to look at before we, of course, send things off to the other co-streams that are still going on throughout the tournament. ISU finally get a game back, and so do Purdue Northwest against UST. So those games now going to match number 4. And on the other side of things, again, we're still waiting for Northwood Weber. That'll be happening over on Wednesday.
Okay. So we have an official day for that. Okay, good to know. Really happy for obviously the results that we have already coming through. I think the fact that the other series are not quite a sweep is something that I think fans can start to get excited. Again, I want to thank to our co-streamers around the community that have made CLOL a lot more well-rounded in its coverage. It's been really nice to see so many members, whether it's team members or just individual community people, has been really, really great. And being able to make sure that we catch all of the games has been obviously the most important part. So if you want to tune in, again, those streams happening on Shaunatonin and Cam_com. So make sure that you check out those streams and send a big warm welcome to them as we're done with our series. Like Grape said, with having to turn around time with how long the series last night went, especially that Fisher versus St. Clair, we had a lot of teams that just unfortunately couldn't make the time commitment, especially as students, right? Just last week was Easter. This time, it's we've got some last minute scheduling. So thank you to all the teams, and especially for Winthrop and St. Clair for being able to accommodate.
And we will have more coverage here on UniEsportsNA next Saturday when we continue on in both the upper semifinals and the lower bracket round number 5. Big shout out to everybody here on St. Clair for making us look good on the production side and for having us here for this coverage. It's been a lot of fun so far. We're looking forward to even more as we get to the higher and higher stakes matches going forward in the CLOL National Championships. Again, remember to check out all of the co-streamers, Camcom and Shaunatonin, who are currently streaming the other remaining games in the bracket. But on behalf of Alk Battery and myself, Grapes, thank you so much for watching this coverage. The final score, Winthrop 3, St. Clair 0. We will see you next time for more CLOL action here on University Esports.